Hello, this is episode 241 of the Lookout Sir podcast. My name is Philip, and joining me today will be Richard in the next segment, so we can talk about Warhammer 40k, the launch of the Armageddon box. If you are listening today, at the time of launch, the box set should be out today. Hey. So we're going to be talking about the build-up, the hype, everything that Games Workshop has done from that initial trailer video all the way through to this week, the build-up to the Armageddon launch box, and basically discuss what they've done right, discuss what they've done wrong, criticize a few things here and there, and then praise Games Workshop for when they've done a pretty good job. So that is the episode for this week. I hope you enjoy it. And then stick around for the end. There'll be a little bit of bonus chit-chat at the very end. Let's get on with the show with a classic transitional noise. In this part of the episode, we're talking about the Warhammer 40k launch. Has it been any good in terms of the build-up and the hype? Has it made sense to us as consumers? And in this part, I'm joined by Richard, the ever cynical 40k player.
Is that the reputation I have now? I should check in the Patreon.
I would have thought so, but who knows? Everyone's been positive so far. But yeah, how are you doing? Quickly, you having a good time?
I'm having a good time. I'm still recovering from surgery, but I've been keeping up with all the 40k news for this new edition.
Exactly, and I believe if the pre-order is correct, I think today, the day this episode goes out, which is the day after actually we're recording, a couple of days later because it's Thursday today. Saturday this comes out. The boxes should be available. Did you buy an Armageddon box, Richard?
I did buy an Armageddon box, and I don't yet have one because I didn't buy from a retailer who broke the street date. But
no, same. So I got mine from Element Games. I'm still patiently waiting for my copy being given to me on the official launch date. So it is interesting. I've seen a lot of people online unboxing or selling bits of boxes or whole boxes well in advance of when people should actually have them, which would be, it's interesting that people have done it. But yeah, we both got boxes, which is good. And then we'll talk about the other stuff as it comes along. So we're going to go through roughly.
I just would like to say that I think if people have got a hold of it early, awesome, good luck. I think that's fantastic luck for you.
Good for you.
Good for you. I do, however, think that Games Workshop should do something about the fact that there are people out there whose entire business is gutting the boxes and selling all the individual items, who are shipping them to people before the boxes even come out, and people are receiving it before the product comes out. That feels wrong.
That
in every way.
True. I mean, that's fair. So our buddy Sean got one. I think it was like off of eBay, and not the box. He got a land speeder off of someone off of eBay, and he got his land speeder like a week ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, we were like, how has whoever's split that box got the box already? So it may well be that these are individuals that, like us, that have purchased it from a third party or from Games Workshop. These are actual like wholesalers doing it on the sly when they're probably not meant to, which is interesting to see that people who have done it. I think Tim, it's currently his birthday. Happy birthday, Tim. He basically just bought the campaign book, the lore book, and the cards and the core rules. And I think he got his from Bits and Kits because they do quite a good deal for splitting stuff down. And I remember I got the Leviathan stuff through them last edition. But that's only really suitable if you're in the UK, to be fair. I don't think he's got his because I think they do it all sort of above board, so to speak.
Do they? I don't know. I don't know who Bits and Kits. I have no interactions with Bits and Kits. I don't mean to cast any aspersions. All I know is that there are some people who've got copies of the boxes early and are splitting them and selling everything individually.
Yes. So I assume Bits and Kits isn't like an official GW retailer because they don't have like a bricks and mortar store, which is what you need to have to be a proper retailer. You can't just be online. But those sorts of people that are reselling it must clearly be very pally with a bricks and mortar store that's like a third-party retailer, or it is a third-party retailer doing it on the down low, which I wouldn't be surprised is also happening to some extent somewhere, because it feels quite prevalent more so this edition than in previous editions.
Because it's one thing for people like splitting the boxes, and then you think, oh, that person you can buy all the individual parts of it. But when the people who are doing that are shipping it out to people to receive a week before it comes out to normal people, that's not right. That ain't right.
It feels a bit rubbish as someone that's patiently waiting.
Oh yeah, GW, sort it out.
Well, there you go. On that note, we will start the main topic. So we're going to go through, do a quick whistle-stop tour of the major Warhammer community articles where they've given us announcements in the order that they produce them. And then occasionally we'll stop and talk about interesting things that we noted at that time or in hindsight, maybe. So the first one is the Adepticon preview where they gave us a really cool trailer, which we all liked. And we've discussed this bit already, so this bit we might skip over. As they gave us the trailer, then they gave us our somewhat diabolical previews of a model of the Space Marine, and then they were like, oh, and here's another model, an Orc, which was a bit lackluster. I think the models look cool, but lackluster in terms of the models that we were given.
That Orc was cool, Phil. What are you talking about?
Well, the model's cool, but the fact that you only got one model and not several models or the entire box, and that we've had to wait some time. And there's been speculation about how they're trying to limit potential 3D sculptors in terms of giving them too much lead time to produce designs that are knockoffs of these. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they're doing it. The other bit is the drip feeding of content to have constant reasons to be visiting Warhammer community, which is a odd metric, I guess you could say, because obviously Games Workshop don't make any money from people visiting the Warhammer community website. Like, they don't have advertising on there, but maybe it's like a KPI for them in terms of the more people visit their website over the course of the year, that's a better metric. So for them internally, so the people that run Warhammer community want to split this content out as much as possible to give you a reason to visit Warhammer community every day and not just once a week or once a month, for example. And I think that was it for this main initial article. Obviously, the trailer was cool. I assume you also thought it was pretty good. I don't think there's too much you want to say at this point, or is there, Richie? Have you got some comments?
I don't know. Let's just scroll down. Do they talk about area terrain objective markers in here?
No, not yet. I think
Okay,
that
all right.
that did come a bit as part of one of the articles. We'll definitely talk about it towards the end, I think, when they go through it in a bit more detail. And then the first thing we got was the first of, I think, two kind of Q&As. So these were videos. If I just quickly play it. Oh, this was the 4-minute one, and then I think they did like an hour-long Q&A later on. So this just kind of clarified a few things for us in terms of what to expect, which in a way, I don't know how much of this was deliberately planned, or they were like, oh, we've not given people enough info and loads of people are asking questions, so I guess we better quickly put out a Q&A for people.
If it wasn't planned, they did a good job of collating questions and putting it out relatively quickly. Hats off to them in that regard.
One of which does talk about objective markers being officially over. So they go, objective markers are no longer circular. Instead, you're going to be fighting over terrain. But they say bunkers, ruins, relics for a more narrative and immersive game. It ends up being sort of rubble for putting ruins on top of, but they don't give us any previews of that just yet. They talk about how
they probably had
stratagems
trouble finding stock to photograph, Phil. That's probably what it was.
Spoilers, but yes. So they talk about stratagems and how you can't stack them. They talk about close combat having tweaks, about how, I presume it's like how piling works, pilots first, things like that. And they also mention that the 40k app gets updated, which we will get into in more detail later on. So it's interesting that straight away they've had to do a little kind of clarification of a few things. Then the next thing is some of the model releases, like the individual ones. So whenever there's been done something they've done repeated, I've not obviously got every single page. I've just got like the first one that they've done. So the first one was the boss knob as like the main sort of solo model that they've given us. Fantastic mini, looks really good. And then throughout the course of several weeks, they've been showing off more models, individual characters, some of the units and things like that. So again, more drip feeding of content, which is, yeah, I mean, I think that worked quite well in terms of how they revealed it over a bit of time, Richie. Or would you rather it just been in like one big live stream video?
I would have rather had all the information at once. That's just me. And for those who talk to me personally about this stuff, will know that I don't care for the drip feeding model. It's like, especially when it comes to rules, I don't mind when it's like, here's the Space Marines or here's the Orcs. And when it comes to like the how you play the game, still haven't really had that. Here's how all the systems work together, because like each day is a different little bit of information, At least now we are almost pretty much at a point with the app where all the rules are in one place now, so you can see how all the changes are working and how actually a game is played now. I wasn't really a big fan of how they drip fed it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's completely fair, I think. The next up that they showed us was the terrain objectives, making the battlefield your own. And they sort of explain how it works with this lovely graph in terms of the footprint of the actual area, how ruins go on it, and how units can score. But I think in this video, they still don't actually preview what the area terrain actually looks like. I think they might have teased it in perhaps one of the videos at this point, but even in this video...
There's a link there. There's a link, Phil, on the video. No, scroll down.
Our terrain article earlier this week.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, let's have a look down this. Terrain features, they talk about how hidden works and how obscuring works. They talk about some of the cards and how things like booby traps work, which I think maybe I'm gonna... interesting. Then they talk about some of the maps.
There.
But, yeah, they still don't show it off. But this is the article that does give you the actual measurements. So this is where people were starting to give the actual measurements and starting to make their own from scratch. So you get 4 large rectangles, 2 large right-angled triangles. So these are sort of triangles, but there's a sort of a little notch on one of the corners. And when we get to the terrain, we can look at that. You get 4 medium rectangles, 2 long lines and 4 short lines. So you get quite a lot of pieces, which is interesting. And then I think there's a few places later on where we look at the map, so we can talk about that in a little bit as well. And then after all of that, we actually get a what's in the box. So this is where we get the big reveal show, showing us all the models from the entire box. All in one go, which was quite an impressive live stream. I think you pointed out, Richie, that even at this point, they still hadn't given you a show me one individual picture with everything in the box. Instead, what we have here is obviously a picture of the box, a picture of all the models in the box, and then like a broken down image of like all the individual things by faction. But there's no picture showing off the cards, the books, the models, all in one big like beauty shot.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I saw some people talking about speculating on the cost of everything. I tried to avoid that. I don't think that was necessarily the best use of a conversation, but I think it could have been avoided if Games Workshop just had an image of here's everything in the box, which they hadn't, for whatever reason, they hadn't released it at this point. I think they finally released it when pre-orders went live.
Yes, yeah, I think it was only finally then. So it sort of made you wait a long time, and it did keep making me go, is the area terrain going to be in the box? Because it's such a fundamental part of the gaming experience, why wouldn't it be in the box? But then I was like, I remember they talking about the area terrain, but not in these like articles specifically to do with what's in the box. And that's because it is just something that they're selling separately, which I feel like personally is a bit of a misstep. But yeah, so what you get is, in addition to the models, you get the core rules, the Dominatus cards, which is like the campaign sort of system, chapter approved cards, and then the individual data sheets, like the physical ones for the models themselves. So, but as you say, they're all just separate images and not in one big product shot. But yeah, I think at this point it was still pretty good. There was a lot of sub-hype. Everyone was loving the models, but there was still a lot of ambiguity in terms of we don't know what the rules are. They hadn't really explained what the Dominatus deck was, and even still I don't think they've given us too much info about what that is, and then things like chapter approved still haven't sort of got into people's hands fully, unless you've obviously managed to get one of those copies of the box before the allocation, because that's not actually out yet. Then what we got was the faction focuses, which was these videos breaking down the individual factions. These were done by, like, was it not Adam, the other one of the guys plus an American guy, hyping up all the competitive natures and the combos around each faction and talking about all the kind of cool new detachments, basically. Because ultimately, the game itself, in terms of the codexes, isn't really changing. There'll be some updates here and there, but for the most part, your codex is still the same. But where the juicy new stuff for an individual army is all in the detachments, right? So obviously we got these. This one specifically talking about Space Marines, but obviously everyone else got theirs individually as well. So did you watch any of these, Richie? Did you have any thoughts about them? Because what I found actually really weird about them, if I can interject really, is this is where they actually talked about some of the actual rules were being explained in the faction focuses, because we hadn't had the core rules at this point, and they would explain some of the core premises in these faction focuses, which I found very odd, because then it made me have to watch them all to see if there was any juicy nuggets about rules changes.
Again, you watched a couple of them. I wasn't the biggest fan of the style of them for me, but I think you're right, because I think we were talking about it at the time, because I believe it was the Space Marines focus where Ingress was first really talked about.
Yes, that was
and
it,
what
yeah.
that meant is that was. I mean, I don't know if there were other rules that were hidden away. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, but they kind of drip fed.
I think things like snap shooting was maybe mentioned in one of these, and yeah, I'm just trying to think what the other rules were, but yeah, there was a few here and there. They talked, I think maybe in the Necrons one, they talked about the revive mechanic. Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure another one either talked about the was it close quarters, which is pistols, but also the equivalent of Hammer of Wrath, which is when you charge in, now you do mortals, but you don't just have to be a vehicle, you can be a monster as well. I think they maybe talked about that in one of the Chaos ones, perhaps. So yeah, there were just these sorts of little rules occasionally that they would just bring up, and you'd be like, cool, you're giving us the context to it now, but personally it's if you had explained all of these mechanics beforehand, then you can just talk about them in these faction focuses rather than bring them up in the faction focus and also explain the rule at the same time, which is odd, because I think because most people I think would just watch a faction focus to do with their own faction that they collect. They wouldn't sit through and watch them all. So it just felt really weird that people would miss out on these kind of specific rules previews that would be quite useful to know, but they were missing out on them because it wasn't relating to their own faction they collect.
Assuming if that's what they did, then yes, I would agree. I mean, it was supposed to be good to know if there's anyone who doesn't collect Space Marines, who didn't watch the Space Marine focus, because that's where they reveal all about how one Ingress move is and how that works. Because I think I watched some of the Space Marines one. I might have watched the Orc. I definitely read most of the articles for the factions which are relevant to me.
Yeah,
I read the Orc one, I read the Space Marines one, and I read the Chaos Knights one because of locking the Chaos Knights with moderate success to failure with them. But yeah, I wasn't reading every single faction focus. So if there were certain rules that were not included, I would have missed them. But in full disclosure, I was actively trying to not read too many rules because I was waiting for them all to be available at once, so I can just be, here's how all these rules work, and this is how they interact with each other, rather than, as I said before, the drip feeding it way of doing it. Whatever their rationale for doing that was, is not one that I'm a fan.
I mean, I can see how it could, because basically you want to appeal to two types of people. The people that are desperate to know absolutely everything and will, even if it's out of context, here's rapid ingress. Okay, cool, but I don't know what any of the other rules, mechanics are around that, maybe. You do appeal to those people, but then the people that are probably more like us that want to see everything all in one go, in a way it's okay, cool, maybe we would just skip over these, because you're okay, cool, you give me a faction focus, but it's half the rules. And I'm pretty sure there have been sometimes where they've mentioned a specific rule and they've not actually talked or explained what it is until much later on. Yeah, it's a bit odd that they do it. I'm sort of someone that's just sort of happy to wait and then go, okay, cool, let me read it all in one go and understand it. And the weird thing is, when we get to the actual core rules, that was odd is obviously they didn't have all the rules there, but now they finally updated the app. It's well, I can't remember what the things are that I wanted to look up at the time were. So now I've got to basically reread the core rules, or at least go through the PDF, find the things that they say these are in the app, and go off to the app and read them for extra context. And I guess maybe once I'm finally ready to play a game, I will do that as a read through. But yeah, the faction focuses were sort of interesting. They're sort of, this is where the meat and potatoes are, I think, for the majority of the factions, getting any kind of update or boost. I am still convinced that the detachment concept is sort of probably way more overcomplicated than other editions have been, but the difference is before there was a relatively high level of complexity, but you needed to know everything. Whereas with this is like, you need to read everything and then decide which detachment to pick. And then from that, you have a very narrow focus of rules that you need to actually learn. But there's more like upfront load in terms of all these attachments that you need to read to understand, to therefore decide which sort of play style you want to go through. And then that'll be more complicated even further when we get to Force Dispositions towards the end of this video, because that's a whole lot extra section that you also need to like read and understand before you can even sort of just go with a detachment, which is a bit of a chicken and egg sort of scenario. In terms of what else they gave us as well, let's skim through some of these. So they gave us the Combat Patrol Companion they announced, which has actually, I think, which is quite good, a bunch of hobby sections in addition to the actual chapter approved. Oh, this is where they also finally give us the area terrain sets and show us what they look like. So you can see here, here's the sort of strange half triangle with the kind of corner not quite cut out. And that they're sort of double-sided, which is, again, an interesting thing that they keep saying it's double-sided, but I've only ever seen pictures of this one side, so I don't actually know what the other side looks like.
What would you imagine it looks like on the other side?
I would sort of hope it's more just like sort of dirt or something, and
something different,
less,
right? It means
something
like a
different
design, because that would make sense if it's going to be one color on one side. Well, I say I had the same assumption. From what I've read in articles, it's exactly the same on the other side. Now, I don't know apparently the reason you haven't seen the other side is because it looks exactly the same.
It's the same. It's not even like a different color.
Nope. As far as I'm aware, from what I've read, it's exactly the same on the other side. So that's why, because it's the same with the. We'll probably get onto this because they have released PDFs of these, and there is no alternative. There's no alternative designs. It's just the other. Now for the triangular pieces, I'll say triangular. I mean,
yeah, these ones.
It could make sense why they are the same, because they will flip. I mean, if you flip it over, you've got a different shaped triangle for where you want to put it on the board. You've got, because you've either got an
right,
but that's just for the I'll call L shapes for the sake of argument. But for the rectangular ones and the squares and the little like long thin ones, they're the same.
Well,
they don't really
with
change.
the
It's a bit
exception
odd
of
that
the
they're
little
different.
rubble patches, right? So the rubble patches, I guess you could have in different positions, which are technically still part of the objectives, which I think
they are so weird. Those rubble patches to me are so weird that you've got this little towing out of the objectives for what counts as the objective.
Yeah.
I just think that's really weird that that's the case, unless it's designed to make it feel more organic rather than just a square, but it also feels kind of a little bit weird.
Yeah, well, it almost feels like they made physical versions of these, and as part of that, they have these extra rubble piles spilling out to help it blend in with the sort of the board and things like that. But then they've gone, well, we need to sort of still incorporate these into the design, because it feels like they've just photographed them and sort of stitched them together and things like that. So it sort of works if you had a physical version that was three-dimensional. The rubble piles would look fantastic, but they look very odd on a flat piece of terrain, especially when you're including that as the actual objective, because in my mind it's like, well, the square bits are the actual objective and these are extra just decorative bits added on. But then what's more confusing is most people seem to have carried on this design in the third-party objectives, which we can look at later because I've got a few examples up. Even though they haven't done it exactly correct, they've sort of just taken that kind of the thematic element of a little bit of rubble sticking out, but it's not like a one-to-one to the Games Workshop style. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, I think. Yeah, okay, cool. I'd note also, so I'll mention it now. So when it comes to the Combat Patrol, and when it comes to that they've updated the app, I've seen people say that they've actually removed a lot of the Combat Patrol rules from the app now. But as I don't play it, I've not looked. I think it's a lot of the specific like data sheets rather than the actual rules. I think they've given you the rules, but not the like detachments. Which I think is quite interesting that they've taken that away from the new app. I assume there's a particular reason for that. Oh, and then they were just saying that you can also buy individually the core rules and then the Dominatus and the chapter approved mission deck. That's all, quite sensible. Kind of standard to what they do. And similarly, I think I talked about it before, when the Armageddon box eventually came onto pre-order, they talked about that you can buy these bits separately, but they get to even now talk about the sort of the starter sets that we normally get, which is where they take elements of the Armageddon box or the Leviathan box and split them down to slightly smaller value proposition boxes. So it's like maybe you're getting one character and a couple of units, and there's normally like a scale of like 1 to 3 size boxes. There's a very small box with core rules. There's a medium-sized box, and there's a large one containing various amounts of what will be Space Marines and Orcs, but in the previous edition it was Space Marines and Tyranids, and we've still not got that yet. Like, they sort of keep that hidden to make everyone, I guess, buy the Armageddon box as much as possible. Then we get a bit of talk about the Dominatus deck. It's, again, still not hugely in detail in terms of what it does, but it sounds like you can just link together missions via like this kind of mini campaign, and that you can get bonuses later on. It sounds like you get your Force Disposition, opponent's disposition, and then these are effectively the missions that you'll be playing, which is kind of basically how the sort of regular kind of card deck system works. But I think this is slightly different. Then you get your actual missions that you're playing, and then
a campaign system on cards gives me horrible flashbacks to Darkwater. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. Okay. I don't think it's necessarily as bad as that. It sounds like,
I mean, I don't know. It might be really good. It might be a really good, easy way to play a campaign together.
Yeah.
But the last campaign I did with cards was Darkwater, and that we both know how that went.
Yeah, there were some odd mistakes in that, I think. But I think with this one, it sounds like they've sort of they've taken some of the elements of Crusade, and I think this comes later on in terms of what they talked about. Talk about it here, like because they've gotten rid of Crusade completely, but they've taken elements of Crusade and applied it here. So you can get like a card which you can apply to a unit, which is like a buff, so you can give it some extra experience. But it sounds like it's like a one-off bonus for that one mission. It's not ongoing experience, so you don't need like a separate sheet to write down. My character's now got 20 experience points. So he's +1 weapon skill. He's got like 3 extra abilities. He's got a relic. And that's a lot of bookkeeping. So they've tried to sort of minimize that as much as possible. And it feels like some of the core premises of how these missions come together might be very similar to like the Armageddon Crusade book that I talked about in a previous episode, where there's like a sort of beginning, middle, end in terms of like your missions, or maybe it's 3 missions, it might be 5 missions, but you sort of link them together, and each person has like sort of an agenda they're trying to achieve over the course of that campaign. So it sounds like there's similar things, but again, they've not talked about it too much even there. But it feels like potentially a halfway house between people who want narrative stuff, people who just want to match play games, but a way of linking them together so it's a little bit more narrative without too much bookkeeping, and something you could potentially just do in a weekend, or so it could be like an event, for example. So I'd be keen to give it a go. I think I guess, Richie, is that something you'd be interested in at some point?
Campaign? Yeah.
Because
I think if they've made running a campaign of any game is not easy. It requires a lot of bookkeeping and like organization. If this Dominatus deck does and enable that to be a lot more straightforward for people and easy, then I'm all for that. So I mean, it's in the Armageddon box. So
yeah, well, exactly. So we've got it.
So everyone's going to have it.
Yeah,
everyone's going to have access to that. They're not going to have access to the area terrain pieces, but they will have the Dominatus deck.
And that is true. Yeah, I was going to say, I think in hindsight, I prefer having campaign books rather than decks of cards, because over the course of the last few editions, it's like I've got, like, let's say between 4 or 5, maybe even 6 decks of cards from the last 2 editions of 40k from all the chapter approved. And it's like they take up a lot of space because they're quite chunky. They're sort of small but chunky, but they're not easy to sort of store in the same way that books are on a bookshelf. So in a way, it's like I prefer my campaign systems to just be book-based because it's easier to keep them afterwards. Whereas cards are just like a bit of a faff. They're not great space savers, but I can understand the appeal of, like, you can create stuff, like you can shuffle them together, you deal things out to people. Like, those elements are, like, the actual playing element is probably more fun via card based, especially if you only need a few cards to, like, run a mission, rather than having a book that doesn't, lie flat, and you got to find the pages and stuff, whereas having a couple of cards in front of you is a lot more handy. But in terms of long-term storage, I think sort of a book wins out. Then onto more terrain. So this was based on a leak. We had the pre-painted terrain that they had shown off, which was very interesting because they gave it to us in this one video where they show off the pre-painted terrain, and they also actually show us the orc bikes, which they kind of confirmed are legit, because I think they show them off later on in a preview. So the orcs that are coming for the sort of the orc wave for when that codex comes, they first appear in this video. We get to see pre-painted terrain. Everyone talks about pre-painted terrain for a good week or two. I guess this is our chance now to talk about pre-painted terrain. But interestingly, Games Workshop's not shown them off in any way. They don't show them off in any of their videos. When they do Gen Con or the Birmingham Con in the UK, they don't show them off there. When they do the live streams to show off the new rules, they don't show them there. They use the Warhammer TV stuff. And that caused a lot of confusion because people were saying, well, this pre-painted terrain's really good. And it's like, yeah, because that's not pre-painted terrain, that's just painted terrain. But it's the same terrain that's been painted.
For the record, I've also seen stories which are the opposite way around, which is people are saying this pre-painted terrain isn't very good. It's not as detailed. And then the response, I think this is one of the shows, someone said this pre-painted terrain isn't as good. And the response was, that's not the pre-painted terrain. That's been painted by the studio team to be in this cabinet today.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
so it's a bit confusing as to what actually it is. I think it's been revealed because I'm assuming because it leaked somewhere, so they've had to release to let people know it is a thing. But it's not coming anytime soon. Or if it is, they don't remotely want.
They didn't want to talk about it. Yeah, so
they want you to think about Armageddon. That's all you need to care about.
Exactly, because I sort of feel like if they were going to talk about it, they would have had every single thing just be the pre-painted terrain. And that kind of makes more sense, right? That they go, cool, here's pre-painted terrain, it's a thing. And then every single version in all the videos, in all the and all the games that they're playing on Warhammer TV or on live streams or tournaments should all just be using that pre-painted terrain as the push to promote it as much as possible. And they've kind of done the opposite, where they've almost gone, don't look at that pre-painted terrain. It's here, but this isn't it. This is the regular painted terrain. Look at this instead. Which makes me go, is that because they don't want to talk about it, or because the pre-painted terrain's not that good?
I would think it's more that it's just not ready, and it's not. It's not. It's not ready. It's like one thing we know is that the approach that Games Workshop are taking to marketing is that their marketing is basically how many articles can they make on Warhammer community. So right now they haven't got any space because all they're talking about is Armageddon. So it doesn't make sense for them to talk about it now. They will have a content plan.
A slot
when they roll out this, there'll be a
Yeah.
slot when it's about to come out. It doesn't make any sense to talk about it now. I think it's cool they did a video rather than just having like a potato cam like a potato cam or something.
Yeah.
It felt to me like a response similar to when I'm trying to think. I remember a big leak
Magnus or something
recently was Angwan was one of the big leaks I remember in recent years where Angwan's a thing. I think it was Angwan, and then they've released the image, or there was like the orc boss as well. It's like, oh, we're going to release the actual image so we can confirm it's a thing. For this, it feels like they've had a video to go, or they quickly made a video just to say, yeah, this is real. So either they've used a video already, or they made something quickly with a quick turnaround. In which case, good job, guys. It looked pretty cool, and because it's a great idea. Pre-painted terrain is a great idea, but I don't think they need to talk about it whatsoever right now, because for us, it's like. I won't go into more details on this one because we're talking about 40k. There's a new edition. There's like a new edition of AOS coming out, or like the new General's Handbook of AOS is coming out.
Yeah,
like is up for pre-order today. If you're listening to this on Saturday, but they've barely talked about it because, and it makes sense why, because Armageddon is the focus. That Armageddon, the new edition of 40k, is the biggest thing that Games Workshop has and will be releasing 4 years, and it's happening right now. So that's what their focus is going to be. So I'm not surprised at all that they've mentioned it, they've confirmed it's a thing, and they're going to go quiet until it's actually the time when it is going to be.
Yeah, so because I remember in terms of pre-painted terrain, Dan and myself were at Salute, I think 2 years ago now, and we saw pre-painted terrain for some kind of dungeon crawler. And so you could see it was like painted on directly onto the sprue. Obviously, you can clip it off, and it's like, I think it's called like UV painting. And there's a few YouTube videos talking about that process, and I think it's been roughly confirmed that it's a similar thing. So it's really hard wearing. It gets painted on, and then UV light sort of seals it in place in some way. So you can kind of scratch it, and it doesn't like flake off or anything like that. It sort of sets almost like hard, nail gels or something. From what I'm vaguely aware of how that works, sort of does a similar thing. But the quality, I don't think, is that great. It's got a very speckled paint effect, and I think that's just in terms of how it gets. It's automated in terms of the nozzle sort of splats it out, and it gives it a very sort of specular type of effect on it, which up close I don't think is particularly good. And part of me feels like the videos do a very good job of almost like hiding that fact from it, and that's why we haven't got some like really good crystal clear up close shots or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see what it's finally like when it's actually out there. I think some of the like the lightning effects sort of look okay, but then some of they're a bit too heavy-handed on the OSL in terms of like the glows of the lamps and stuff like that. But then things like the datapad screens are quite interesting, and they have also confirmed that you can buy it without painted, so you can get it unpainted. And I think the real interesting bit will be the price point at which those two sets sell at, like how much more expensive will be the pre-painted one, because I love the idea of painting my own terrain, but I just never get time to do it.
I would guess you're in a minority, and that's why this product exists. In that
I think so.
most people don't paint terrain, because most people just paint their armies and they take it somewhere. So I have like some small amounts of terrain I've got for playing like very small games, but which I painted myself. Very proud of myself. I did that. I mean, it was during COVID, so I didn't have much else to do. But a lot of people want to play 40k, but having like nice looking terrain that they have them that they don't. People just don't have the time to. I mean, I put some part of it down to time, like the time investment to do it. We'll see if there's a monetary investment to it as well, because when this launches, it won't be cheap, because Warhammer terrain isn't cheap.
Oh, it's crazy expensive as it is for like a whole table's worth of terrain. Would probably, from a normal Games Workshop, like if you're buying the bits individually for the runes, it'd be several £100s. I hope it's not quite as expensive as that, but I also wouldn't be surprised based on the amount of terrain it is. I think one point to make about why it's so difficult to paint is that there's just so much detail on it. Like even the standard ruins, it's just like details with loads of skulls, like exhaust pipes, like whether it's like barbed wire or data sort of screens and interfaces, ventilation shafts, all that sort of things exist on those really basic walls, basically. And it's like, if you're trying to paint up all of those things individually, it would be a nightmare. Whereas most people, I think, sort of spray it mostly the same color. Maybe they pick out a few things. Maybe they do the metal trim and the stone, and they're the two colors, and that's kind of it. And they do like a wash or a rust effect on it or something to speed things up. Because if you try and do a thing individually, it'd be a nightmare. I think the one time I would have been really down for this is the boarding actions terrain, because the boarding actions for 40k is like a double set of terrain, and it's also highly repetitive in terms of the wall designs. So that would be, I think, and I've not yet got around to it myself, but I think when I get around to painting it, it will be just really boring and quite laborious. So having that all pre-painted would be like a no-brainer for me. I think something like that, I think, would have worked better than this. But I'm glad they're doing it. I think it will be interesting. It will probably make people go, well, when are we going to start getting miniatures pre-painted? And they talk about that in the second Q&A, where they go, we won't be doing that. But it does open the door for people to be like, but why not? Because you can.
I do disagree with you, though, Phil. I think making pre-painted terrain for the 5 people who play boarding actions is not a good business decision. Whereas making pre-painted terrain for everyone who plays 40k. No shade. I mean, no shade on people who play boarding actions, but it is. I would say it is definitely not the more popular
form
of the game. But I can
This
see
is
why it'd be
potentially
more helpful because it's harder to
yeah.
paint. Like if they did pre-painted Necromunda terrain, because I want to help our buddy like with a Necromunda campaign late this year, and you need lots of terrain for Necromunda,
Yeah,
and
yeah, true.
it's
But with that, you almost want to be able to customize it and convert it. And I don't. Maybe that'd be a lot harder to do with the pre-painted stuff, because it's designed to be so modular. The
I mean,
Necromunda stuff.
but what I think the pre-painted terrain is a really good idea because I would guess that a large amount, I don't want to say majority or 50%, I don't know how much it is, but I think there is a significant percentage of players who getting their army painted is struggle enough.
Yeah,
And a financial time-based thing enough. So having a solution for a group. So I don't think every individual person is going to buy. I don't think the intention is that every individual person is buying a complete pre-painted terrain set. That's like for a group of people or for
maybe.
venues or what have you. For who I think it's going to be a more specialized release. I don't think I don't feel this is aimed necessarily at every single gamer because most gamers. I mean, it might really pop off and do incredibly well. But most people would like to have their army painted and getting their army painted they want to play, but they want to play on good looking terrain. So like whether I wouldn't be surprised if this is more of a group banding together to purchase it, something like that. But I think it's a really cool thing because it means that any group of players can now have really nice looking actually, I'll say it is really nice looking terrain that you can play with. That comes already painted.
It just makes being able to play on a good looking table a lot easier. My one kind of concern with this is that we will start to see, because I doubt this is really going to be used by events unless they're somehow really loaded. But like, I just hate the idea that I would go to a gaming store or round to a friend's house and then they come round to mine and then I go down to the local gaming club. And we're literally all playing on the same terrain because everyone's gone, well, we're using these area terrains for objectives. And this is the official set designed for that. And it's pre-painted, so it's a no-brainer. So it's like, cool, on every single table I play in 40k now will be these exact same Imperial-themed ruins that is exactly identical because this is the sort of the one kit that everyone's buying. Like, it's a cool concept. I think it would be great if Games Workshop could produce several different themed sets of different area terrain that they could produce. That would be very cool as well. So it's like, oh, there's a Tau themed one, there's a Tyranid themed one, there's maybe a variant Imperial one. Now, I can't necessarily see them doing that, but I just would worry that it would sort of stagnate the system by everyone buys this because it's so popular, and therefore every time I'm playing 40k it's mostly on this sort of terrain set.
It would still I think that is a very valid concern. I do think it will still be better than the old days of L-shaped MDF and giant pie plates on board.
No, completely agree.
That's
fair. It's definitely better than that. But here's the thing: I'd probably buy this because or the unpainted one, maybe. Let's say because it goes well. It's just ready made for me. I can just pop it down, I can get a mat, and I'm done. And then I've got all this really cool, interesting, unpainted terrain that I maybe want to build, or I've got loads of, Sector Mechanicus stuff that I could maybe make fit this area terrain. But then will I put any time and effort into it when I've just got this sort of ready-made to play? And then maybe that's more of a me problem than a them problem, but it just sort of, the barrier to entry for using this is so much lower, it's sort of disincentivizing me from doing the slightly harder hobby job of making cool and interesting terrain. But that's maybe something I need to work on. Anyway, let's move on to whatever.
Let's go back to talking about Armageddon.
Yes, exactly. Oh, so this was the second lot of Q&As that they did, which was a much longer one where they had loads of questions sort of messaged in that they answered. One of them was, yes, they are doing unpainted versions of the pre-painted terrain. I think they did quite a good job of answering lots of sort of general questions about 40k that people had. But I think it also highlighted how little information they gave people, that people were speculating on these sorts of different things and that this was even needed. I felt like they didn't do quite a good as job as, say, I remember I think it was either 8th or 9th edition where they gave us tanks are back and they gave us this like bullet pointed, top 10 changes in DK. I think that was the 9th edition one. And that did quite a good, top down, really breezy overview of the major changes. And I feel like they haven't really done anything like that for this edition, which is why people had all these nitpicky Q&A stuff.
I think that's for the best because I distinctly remember in in that list of bullet points was there'll be less command points and less rerolls.
Less rerolls,
Was one of those bullet points that they talked about, which turned out to be not entirely as accurate as they probably
the game will
thought
be
it was.
less lethal or something. I think
Yeah,
one of them said as well.
I think there was, if anything, I would say it was almost like if I was them, I would have looked back on that on 9th edition and realized that they said a lot about in the hype to the release of 9th of what it was going to be like, and when all the rules came out, and when all the rules started coming out and people started playing it, it turned out that actually that's not quite what we envisaged that would mean. So I think it's good they've done these Q&As. I thought it was an interesting piece of content, the Q&A, because it could have been at 30% shorter if they took out the stupid questions. No offense, some of those questions.
Yes,
some
like
of them were either jokey or a bit silly, but I can equally understand why you would need to include those, because sometimes there's such a diverse audience of people who play 40k that some people do need to some things clarified. So something that I think, that's obvious, not everyone will feel the same way. So I think it is good that there are there's these very clear clarifications going on there. I think maybe it could have been shorter, but I thought it was a good piece of content. I think I was painting something or watching it at the same time when it came up, because it felt very balanced. It wasn't just like, here is this rule, here is answer, here is this rule, here's this answer. It felt like a nice balance between more community questions, lore questions, and there was a good cross section of the kinds of the questions in there. So I thought that was a nice piece of content.
Yeah, some of them were like, what chapters are available playing on Armageddon, because I want to theme my Space Marines to there. They did sort of lore questions like that around Armageddon and things like that, which I thought was pretty good. But as you say, some of them got a bit either repetitive or sort of so obvious. It's like it didn't really feel like it needed to be said. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. Then we get the individual, I think this is like the rules previews for the models, the new models specifically in the box set. So we got the Eradicator squad with heavy bolters, and I think in the Q&A that's when they clarified they are separate data sheets because they've got their own abilities. So they're not just generic Eradicators. It's now Eradicators with melter rifles and then Eradicators with heavy bolters. So here they obviously preview them. You get your bolt pistol with its close quarters keyword now rather than pistols. You got your heavy bolter, which has heavy and sustained hits 1, which is your standard. Your free shots, strength 5, -1, AP 2 damage. But a cool rule that they get is overlapping detonation. So in your shooting phase, when this unit is selected to shoot, you can select one non-monster or vehicle enemy unit visible to it, and then basically your heavy bolters get blast 1, which is per model. So that is just an extra 3 shots for your 3 guys, assuming they're all alive. But that could obviously go up much more if against a 20-man unit, you're getting an extra 4 shots per model. So that's a lot of extra shots. So they did these rules previews. I thought it was quite interesting. Some more relevant than others, like this one, which is a brand new unit. Sometimes it was like the Orc Boys, and the rules haven't changed a whole lot more. Did you find these kind of compelling articles, or did you skim over them completely?
I actually read these ones, or if these are the ones. Wait, I say that if these were the ones where they released all the actual data sheets, I definitely read. There was an article where at the bottom you could download all the new data sheets in one go. I read those ones, and I might have. I don't know if this is the same
that came
one.
a bit later. I think this was initially just showing them off, and then at some point they're like, yeah, you can download them all in one go.
Okay, I think I definitely did read through some. I skimmed these ones because this was quite interesting, because this is like, oh, here's new minis, and here's how those rules are going to work. Right? How do eradicators with heavy bolters work? This was quite interesting because it was quite compartmentalized. Here is new unit, you guys see new unit, how does new unit play? So this was quite cool because this was it was kind of confirmed within the visual that.
I think there were some times where it's like, for example, pistol says close quarters, but it's like, okay, what does close quarters mean? Obviously you can speculate that at this point that it just means pistols, but there was a few where they had specific rules in them, but it's like, okay, cool, I don't know what that means because they've not told us what these extra new,
what is, I think
universal special rules are.
One thing that is slightly confusing, at least, is that now they've updated the app, we'll come on to this, I assume, at some point, but pistol is still used for weapons in that. So close quarters is it hasn't been it doesn't appear to be a smooth transition from no longer using pistol but using close quarters.
Yes, so I worked this out when I think the last episode where I went through the rules. The reason why the rules specifically mention pistols and close quarters is because they can't invalidate all the old codexes, and the old codexes will still say pistols.
Right, okay.
But obviously, the new ones will say close quarters when they update them. So the rules have to say both pistols and close quarters. But eventually, in theory, come say the next edition, they will just all say close quarters, and they can get rid of the pistol
Okay.
reference. So it's just to make things backwards compatible, basically.
Well, that won't be confusing.
No, I know. I guess in theory, you could say they could have just used the term close quarters, but then they would have had to have FAQ'd every single data sheet that has a pistol in it to say replace pistol keyword with close quarters.
Is there any? I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but is there any difference between pistol and close quarters, or is it
No,
just?
it's the same thing. So in the rules it says pistol / close quarters, like it references them both together.
What's the point? I get. Well, I would. Okay, then I'm going to assume then that means that there will be certain weapons which are not pistols, which can be used in close, which can be used still be fired in combat. But
yes.
but someone was being pedantic and said that's not actually a pistol, though, is it? So I don't know why they use that accent, but so now it's going to go with close quarters, so you can still use them. It's just two interchangeable keywords. Okay.
Yeah, it's more generic. So yeah, you could have a monster or tank, for example, with a weapon that you could fire into combat without it being an actual literal pistol, but still give it the same effects. But because all the old codexes still use the term pistol, the core rule still has to reference both, basically. And there's a few examples of other rules as well where they reference it twice, I think, because it's like the new name plus the old name. Then we get into the Twitch stream of the esports event in Arlington, Texas, where it was like a 13-hour marathon of going through, I think, 3 games of Warhammer 40k. And this was the first live example of 40k where you could watch along. They, again, don't use the pre-painted terrain. They use the Warhammer TV's version, or a painted copy that they've manually done. And I maybe sat through around an hour or 2 of this, and then I just sort of gave up because I sort of found it a bit boring after a while, and it just wasn't that interesting. Did you watch any of this, Richie?
That's the show I did not have. I don't know if it was because of the time when it took place, but no.
Yeah, it was sort of interesting. They're obviously like explaining some of the rules as they went along, and it was basically your Armageddon boxes plus a bunch of other models that were similarly themes to make up to 2,000 points. So they had like a Brutalis Dreadnought, I think, the classic Redemptor on the Space Marine side. And then the orcs had, the copters and maybe a bat wagon or something. And I think there was some people complaining about like either the units or how they were played. It just made me go, oh, this still feels a bit stale in terms of like, you've got these staging points on the map and you're just poking out. And as I think within the first, it was either actually in this video or actually in one of the first faction focuses. As soon as someone says trading units, I just sort of switch off and go, oh God, I hate this game so much. That's now what it's boiled down to, is it's trading pieces. And it's like, just, even though if that's what it's always been, it feels like it's worse now when people are explaining it in such a uninteresting game mechanic term.
I totally feel your pain on that one, because that's not the game that I grew up with, that I fell in love with, that I still love. But if they are playing this was this at like a tournament, this was presented in an esports format, so that's how in Texas. So it's the American esports approach of it.
Yeah, so I think a tournament was happening at the same time, like the Games Workshop one, and then they were bolting on this preview for 11th edition as part of it, I think. I could be mistaken, but that's what I would assume they were doing.
I would have loved if they had like a beer, to use parlance our Americans would understand, a beer and pretzels approach, which is like a couple people just playing the game in a studio, highlighting the different, like just highlighting this is how the game plays now. If you're familiar with 40k, you may notice this was slightly different. Which they may have done, and I haven't watched.
Well, they did. I've got it here somewhere. They did the Warhammer TV version, which was a bit more like that, which is this next bit. So they did a free battle report, which showed it off. And that was on Warhammer TV, but that it was available for anyone. And I still didn't finish watching it all. I got maybe half an hour in, and then I was like, okay, cool. I sort of get the gist, but I'm not just that interested. And I think personally, I'm just not a huge battle reports person. But I think they did a slightly better job of this, showcasing some of the rules. But as you say, an even more kind of casual version where they're like explaining the changes between the two editions would have been a slightly more interesting approach, I think, for me personally. But then that's because we're players transitioning across. And to be fair, most people are transitioning across from 10th to 11th. They're not new players. But even so, because I think when they did that live stream one, I was saying to you and a few others, like, oh, why haven't they given us the really dumbed down how to play version of the game, which was at one point done by this American lady, and then it was... Oh, it's not Ed. I'm trying to think of his name. The main guy that
Wasn't Nick
normally does Warhammer Community,
what was it?
Nick. So Nick did the last
Yeah.
few, did like an edition where it's like him on his own, going, this is how you play the game. This is the command phase. This is the shooting phase, and sort of explaining it through, and like a generic how to play video, I think would...
They still might, Phil. They still might.
Yeah, because I don't think they've done a generic how to play video for this yet. But I sort of feel like that would almost be more helpful, or two distinct versions, right? Dumbed down version for completely new players. Like, this is a game of Warhammer. You've never played Warhammer before. This is how you play it. And then a transitional one, which is, okay, guys, you know how to play 10th edition. Here are the main changes between them, and we're going to sort of roll it out on a tabletop so you can see the difference. I think that would be good, I think, because people, I think, just in general prefer consuming video media over reading a page, for example.
I mean, I think because they haven't what they Games Workshop haven't yet done. It really is the welcome to you are buying 40k for the first time. Like, you are a new player. I know I see lots of people talking about it online about how is this edition good for new players or not. This Armageddon box is not designed for new players. Not
well,
remotely.
No, that's sort of what we were talking about before with the starter boxes, right? Like, I think they sort of outright pretty much said it last edition. It's like, this is a launch box, not a starter box or starter set. And I think it was either last edition or the edition before where they sort of made that distinction in the name change. And they were like, this is the box to see in the new edition that, if we're honest, is mostly for seasoned players that want to get into the new edition, want to bulk up their army or start collecting a new one. It's not beginner friendly, so it doesn't have dice in it anymore or measuring sticks and things like that you need to have everything to play the game. As we mentioned, doesn't have objectives in it, so you can't play the game just from that box alone. Whereas a starter set, which has a couple of models here and there, has the rules, has some dice, has a measuring stick or something, maybe has the objectives in, everything you need in one place to buy that, even if it's a limited model count, but get someone brand new into the game. They don't have to buy anything else outside of that one box, is something we do need to see from Games Workshop, and would be quite
Games Workshop,
good.
And Games Workshop has history of that kind of skew, to use the corporate terminology for it, because they exist already. On the Warhammer website, they have got starter kits based around 10th edition. So they're still, some of them are still available to pre-order or buy, rather. But I would fully imagine that after the launch of Armageddon, we will at some point in the next month or so, because those versions will come out ready for Christmas, because that's when the most kind of that kind of product will be shipped, will be sold to people, and that's when you'll have that's when their marketing aimed at new people will start, and that's when you'll have the starter editions, which will have the dice, they'll have measuring sticks. You have a smaller version.
Would it have terrain?
I want to say that based on previous history, there would be some kind of terrain, because I want to say that the Warhammer 40,000 starter set did not have terrain.
No, it doesn't. But what did, though, was
there was a combat patrol starter set which did. Or there still is the combat patrol starter set. And that does come with terrain. So,
because I was thinking of the Kill Team starter set that had Ultramarines and Death Guard in, and it had the MDF printed terrain on it, which was sort of very reminiscent of the Second Ed terrain. that came in that box. Like it sort of just slots together. But it looked very nice, to be fair. It was a bit
I don't know,
simplistic, but that for a starter set I think would work well. It doesn't need to be fancy plastic terrain, I don't think.
I would fully accept. I sent you a link in case you wanted to pull it up as forward, or just to look at reference. But I would then, based on that, and if that was successful or not, I don't know. I would expect to see some kind of very basic starter set which doesn't have terrain, and a more advanced starter set which is a bit more expensive, which will probably be a Blood Angels kill team. A Blood Angels combat patrol, and an Orcs combat patrol, and a bit of terrain, and your dice, and your measuring sticks, and maybe not all the rules, but enough rules to be able to play that with.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So actually, yeah, the Combat Patrol starter set does actually include some terrain. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I imagine we'd get something like that with dice, with measuring sticks, with a form of terrain. Yeah, that's good. And I think we'd get something like that. God, still not cheap. Still
But you're getting the
134
terrain.
quid.
I mean, that's
But
not
you're
cheap,
getting the terrain.
but that's you're getting, essentially for that, you're getting some terrain, you're getting 2 combat patrols, you're getting, I'm not trying to, and this isn't me trying to justify the price point. This is me looking at why it's at that price point. Is you're getting 2 complete combat patrols, you're getting terrain, you're getting a battle mat, or is it a mat or a board? Doesn't matter too much because we're not talking about this. We're talking about Armageddon. The point being is that Games Workshop have a history of, they will launch a big edition. They have a big fancy new box with lots of new stuff in it, and then they'll have like more affordable editions, which are the ones designed to get new people into the game. Because there is still just a 40k starter set in general, which costs. In fact, there's not. There's multiple. There's a starter set. There's a starter set which is 70 quid, which comes with like 6 units and a board, no terrain. There's also an even basic starter set for 40k, the introductory set, which is 40 quid, which comes with 2 units and some terrain to play on, and some paints and some stuff. So Games Workshop will release various different introductory starter versions of this new edition which are aimed at new players, the people who have never played Warhammer before, who want to have a way of jumping into it. That stuff will come. This initial this Armageddon moment is, I was purely aimed at is primarily aimed at the existing community of people who play 40k. Like the Armageddon box is like, you want to get the new Space Marines, you want to get the new rules first, because you will technically get those books and cards 1 or 2 weeks earlier than if you didn't buy that box. You'll get the first dibs on the new minis for doing that. So that's like this is almost like the FOMO kind of box in that regard for Armageddon. So this is just like the first release. There'll be more stuff coming later in this 11th edition when it comes to like stuff for new players.
Yeah. No, I think so. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So we got spoiled with not one cinematic trailer. We actually got a second one. This one was really interesting because it showed us a little sort of snippet of every faction in sort of animated form. It also showed us like the God Emperor in his sort of heresy era when he was alive, but also sort of in his current sort of dead version on the Golden Throne as the Corpse Emperor.
But I thought people on YouTube said he's still alive. You can see him moving.
Yeah, I think that was just like either a flashback to when he was alive or when he was. To me, it was more like that is the projection of him that people see him as, and the corpse version is what he actually is. But yeah, I did see some people saying, well, he's clearly healing, he's regenerating. Look, he looks much better in this bit. And it's like, I think you've missed the point, sadly. And it was a lot of nods and references to like Rogue Trader and like old artwork of like John Blanche and stuff like that, of him as like the Corpse Emperor. And on the Golden Throne. So yeah, I thought this was a really cool trailer. Did you have any thoughts on it, Richard?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was cool. I don't think it was quite. I didn't think it was quite as cool as the first one. I didn't think it had like the big kind of like narrative hook for me at least. I thought the previous one was better.
No, that's fair. I thought it was a nice surprise. It didn't feel really like it was needed, but it was just sort of awesome that it was there and they'd done it, and it was like a nice bonus, basically.
It's nice as it's not just Orcs and Space Marines.
Yeah, I think it sort of gives you a bit more of a scope for this is encompassing everyone, and there's a bit more to it. Exactly. If you're not an Orcs and a Marines player, here's something for you guys, which I think was very cool.
It's also a good brand play. I would assume that if he, at some point, one imagines they'll be doing some more like advertising or marketing around the new edition. With this what this video shows is that they have videos of all the different factions that are available. So they'll have like really well produced image visuals and a video of all these different factions that they could use, not just orcs and specialists, for when they do want to do like YouTube shorts or whatever it, assuming that they have some kind of marketing campaign coming down later for stuff. This is a really cool asset they have because they've got all the factions they can use.
If they were really clever, potentially a lot of these were snippets of larger videos that they produced for when those codexes come out, and they would be like, okay, cool, it's AdMech versus Necron, so we're going to release those two at the same time, and here's their video to promote those that can go on social media. That would be interesting. Who knows if that's actually the case. It was interesting to note that I think one of them specifically stood out being very weird, which was the Eldari one, because it was like so short. It almost looked like it was like a 2D that they'd sort of like animated it, because it was just like sort of blink and you miss it type, whereas everyone else felt like they got a much longer piece. But that one is specifically referencing some second edition artwork, which they mention here, but don't show up. But yeah, that was cool to see. Then we finally got the core rules available for free, noting that some of the rules said see the app. So it'd be good now the app's out to actually go back through those core rules and see them. If you want to deep dive in the core rules, as a shameless plug, you can watch our last episode where I went through them in absolutely minute detail. I think there was only two things I missed in hindsight. One of them was that when you fast dice and someone's making their saves, you roll all your saves at the same time, but you pick the dice from lowest to highest, which basically in theory makes characters a bit more survivable because they're used last, because it's like bodyguard first, but then is characters. But it also makes precision more deadly because they, in fast dice, will be taking all the low dice rolls first, which I thought was quite interesting.
I'll level with you. I thought I didn't see too much of a difference to how it is normally, which is just make all your saves.
You do, but you do them in a specific order, because normally you would make your saves, but you'd be like, oh, okay, I've got 5 dice rolls will kill the bodyguard, so I'll fast dice roll them, and then I'll go, okay, cool, I'm now on the character, so I'll roll the rest on the character. But instead you roll all of the allocation in one go. So it does technically make a bit of a difference.
It's depending on how we want to look at probability, it might make a difference. I mean, I think you're right. It does make characters slightly more survivable in theory, because it means all the failed wounds are going to be more likely.
It makes the character more survivable, especially if it's got like an invuln save or something. If it doesn't, it potentially doesn't make a difference. As you said, the higher dice rolls should be saved to the end, so he or she is more likely to pass those dice rolls. But then the inverse happens when you do precision, because all your dice rolls that potentially fails are being triggered first, and it could just be a weight of numbers thing where you don't have much AP, but it's like, cool, have 40 shots, your character's making them all, and even if you don't have an AP and you got a 2-up save, but you're going to roll a bucket full of ones because you've just got to make so many rolls. That's just all going on him first.
Do you still not get to choose how it goes?
No, well, not when it comes to precision, but you do the lowest order of dice rolls in terms of the sequencing, if that makes sense. So let's say, for example, I've got a character and a bodyguard. There's, let's say, 5 bodyguards and a character, and basically I'm doing 20 attacks into you. There's no AP, but basically you've got to roll 20 dice, but all of those dice in order of lowest to highest are being allocated to that character. So if you rolled 5 ones, it's like, okay, cool, that character's now dead immediately. Then all the other dice rolls will go on to the bodyguard, and let's say there's a couple of 2s and 3s, so a couple of those guys die, but then the rest are like 4s, 5s and 6s, and say, okay, cool, those all survive. But then it also works the other way around, right? So normally those 1s would have gone on to the bodyguard unit, so those models would have died. And then by the time you get to the 4s, 5s and 6s, that would have been on the character, and that character would have survived. So potentially weight of numbers can be more deadly if it can get precision, assuming you've got an ability that can give a whole unit precision, or something that has a lot of shots that can have precision, which is, not too common, I don't think. But it was interesting. I think there's lots
Hmm.
of interesting nuances in the new rules. It doesn't feel like there's a whole load of really big changes, but there's just lots of little changes that I think will catch a lot of people out. And we just need to get some games in and to see how it all shakes out. I think so. Yeah, wound allocation was an interesting one. Yeah, there was a few others. But yeah, overall, I thought this was quite good that they gave it for free, that they gave it to us quite early. The downside is that there was a bunch of areas where it said CD app and the app hadn't come out yet. And some of them felt like quite fundamental, so would be quite useful to have in the core rules, especially if you were like a new player. Like, because some of them are like, what's a roll off? If you don't know what a roll off is, it's like, okay, cool, I can't do some of the fundamental bits of the game. And it's like, okay, cool, I need the app to actually look that up. Whereas it feels like as a starter set, let's say these core rules are in a starter set, those things would be really fundamental to have. And I think having physical versions of those rules for someone to read would be more useful than, say, go off and find this in the app.
Well, it should be noted that the only reason they released the core rules in the way they did is because of a leak. So it was probably not intended to be released.
Oh, true, yeah, because there was that
until
French
today when
copy, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was probably not meant to be released until the app was updated.
Good point. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's actually a good point. Yeah, because I found that quite confusing. But yeah, in hindsight, that would make more sense. Okay, cool. What do we have next? So we got a couple of round table videos. The first one was discussing minis. The first one was specifically Space Marines. Then it was orcs. Then I think there was one about painting, which I think was quite useful. And the orc one was, I think, more interesting than the Space Marine one. And they did one around the lore of Armageddon. And then I think they did one with the rules. And I think I maybe missed a few. I don't think I've watched all of them, but they were quite interesting overall. I think the Space Marine one, which was the first one, was maybe the most boring because it was just them. I don't know. It just wasn't interesting in terms of like some of the evolutionary choices between, orc versus, different types of Space Marines doing Space Marine stuff. Did you watch any of these? Well, there we go.
I didn't even know these came out, to be honest. So
yeah,
I can't really comment on them. They might be fantastic, but I don't have an opinion.
That's fair. I sort of normally like the sort of inner design studio stuff, and some of these were quite good and then some weren't as good. I think maybe I need to go back and either rewatch them. I probably just need to rewatch them again to see what my thoughts about them were. But I think the first one, I didn't think it was as fascinating as I had hoped for. Then we got an article talking about a global campaign that they're going to do, but still hasn't happened yet. So they're taking some points on Armageddon, a particular hive, which is Deathmire, which I think is, Deathmire's here on the left-hand side in Armageddon Prime. So you get to battle globally for the fate. Who knows how that's going to happen? It says you'll have an invitation to join it. I guess it's in the box set maybe, which is what they did in the last one. So you had like a QR code that you could fill in. And then they say, once the campaign begins on the 22nd of June, you have until the 13th of July to play a game and record it. So you don't even get a whole month, which is mad, because very few people in my mind are able to assemble a box of miniatures and play them in that time. I certainly don't. So if I could somehow maybe submit a game that doesn't require the box in terms of like the actual minis to be played with, and I can just use any old army, then I could do it. That would be great. I think, last time, because I didn't buy the box, I sort of missed out, basically. But it'd be interesting to see, the outcome of this. It felt like the outcome of the other one wasn't all that exciting. I definitely remember they had your miniatures will be previewed first, and they've sort of said something similar this time round as well, where it's like, whoever wins, we will preview some of the new stuff coming for that faction down the line, which, gives some people an incentive for faking the results, maybe. I think everyone wants the underdog to win, so last time it was Tyranids and this time it'll be Orcs. I can't actually remember what the final results of that one were. Can you remember?
Gosh, no.
No, okay.
But I'm assuming it would have been Space Marines because there's more Space Marine players.
You would have thought so, yeah, but I think people
But again, I didn't buy I didn't buy 10th edition, so I couldn't take part in.
Well, exactly, same, yeah. So maybe this time we can and get a game in and submit some scores. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it like. But it felt like, it'd be great for them to do like an actual video, like narrative video explaining what happened. And maybe they did this last time, but it felt like such a non-story, because they normally always say, you'll decide the fate of this, in this case, it's this hive, and it will be written into Warhammer lore forever. But it's like a cursory paragraph in a book that most people don't read. So it's a bit of a non-point. It's not like a massive, change for the Warhammer story. And I feel like it maybe needs to have a bit more of an impact. And it feels like this edition is very Armageddon themed. So it'd be interesting to see where they go with this, or what they can do with it. So that'll be interesting to see what they do in future when that comes out. So that is on the
good news. The
22nd
good news is,
of
Phil,
June. So it's only a few days away, according to this.
I'm going to assume it somehow involves being connected to the app to submit those scores into BCP or something. I'm going to assume that's how all done. And one thing that the app automatically assumes, as well as, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think you can toggle it, is that you are painted battle ready by default.
Yes, I noticed that.
It's an optional 10 points, but if you're using the app, you get it anyway. You can't. It's not toggleable. So what's the point of that?
Oh, it's not toggleable.
As far as I can tell, it's. I mean, I might have to make another game.
Yeah, I guess
I'll have to complete the one we were testing the other day, but there doesn't appear to be any option to say that you were battle ready on.
Well, we can get onto this shortly, because we're a few tabs away, and then we're talking about the app, I'm pretty sure. Then we have the faction packs, which you mentioned earlier. So download the faction packs today. So they started off with the Space Marines, gave us the detachment. Weirdly, they gave us the detachments in PDF form. So there's the three new PDF, the three new detachments, the Fulguris Task Force, the Librarius Conclave, and the Subversion Assets. They're all in like a new design template, whereas all the others are in the old design template, so they look slightly different than the new ones. They haven't updated the old ones to match, which was a little bit annoying, but I can understand they don't want to, in this example, do almost like 20 detachments and update the design of every single PDF. That's a lot. But slightly annoyingly, the Force Dispositions and the detachment points aren't on the PDFs either. So they've given them to us, for example, initially here on the Warhammer community page, which will be lost to the sands of time in the future, and then you've got to find them in the Warhammer app. Now the app's available. So when you first see this, it's like, well, this is really counterintuitive. This isn't very easy to see. I just want to look at the PDF of my specific detachment and know how much it's going to cost and what the Force disposition is within that page. When it comes to the app, though, it makes it far more sense, and it's all included. But at this point, we hadn't got there. This was just seeing it via PDF form. So this was a bit frustrating. And at this point, even up to now almost, you still don't really know what the Force disposition is, what it means, until we get hold of the card. So again, we're still having, even though the core rules are out, we still don't know what some stuff does.
This is all in the app.
Yes.
But the way that I do agree, the way this was drip fed out, it's like, well, what does this mean? This doesn't. What are you supposed to take away from this? Now it's all in the app. It's a bit more straightforward. Okay, this is how it fits together, because you can choose multiple ones that add up to the value for the game you're playing.
Yes, so you get free DP for a 2,000 point game, and you can mix and match your detachment. So you could take, for example, Armored Spear Tip, which costs free DP. That's your only detachment you take, and you get just the Force Disposition of Take and Hold. I think the one frustrating thing here is that I feel like some of the 3 DPs should have multiple options. So, for example, Armored Spear Tip should be maybe Take and Hold and something like Reconnaissance. So you get a bit of flexibility in taking the free DP. I don't like how you take one detachment and you're sort of stuck rigidly to one play style, whereas you could take 3 1DPs. Although that's maybe a bad example, because actually if you do that, you only get Disruption and Reconnaissance. And maybe that's a deliberate design choice, whereas could take...
There's 3 at 1DP.
Yes, but 2 of them have the same Force disposition.
Oh, but you get access to different different stuff and stratagems, etc. with those
Yes, so
combos.
each detachment unlocks new abilities and rules, and yes, sometimes it's stratagems and enhancements, and also like army-wide rules, but it's normally specific to specific unit. But the Force Disposition also unlocks with a detachment. So if you could take 3 1DPs and each one had a different Force Disposition, it would give you a choice of 3 different sort of win condition, whereas at least with the Space Marine one, if you did that, you actually only get 2. And I'd be interested to know if that's a deliberate design choice, because if you take a 2DP and a 1DP, you also get 2. And maybe they've gone, well, we don't want someone to be able to pick between 3 because that's too powerful potentially.
It's an interesting system that it made a bit more sense once I had the app to be able to put it all together more. Like, because looking at it from a Chaos Knights perspective, there's the best there's the current best one, which is the Traitor's Lance, which is 3DP. So it's like, oh, you want the Sand one, which is one we've played. Is the one where I can add sustained hits and I can get all my extra movement and stuff. To do that version, or to make one toughness 12, that version is all in the 3DP. However, now that there's the smaller DP options, it is technically now possible, if you're taking Chaos Knights, to take a combination. Obviously you can't with that one because that's 3DP, but there is an option to take like Lords of Dread and one of the new what they call Force Dispositions. So you can have buffs for your War Dogs and the big. Because there is some Force Dispositions which do cool stuff with the War Dogs, but then you can't do anything cool with the big knights. So what is quite interesting about this is you can, and I've given some negativity towards you can have more flexibility than ever before when building your army list. And essentially there in some ways there is less in one perspective, because now you can still take whatever you want, but the more of certain units, or the more of most units you take, the price becomes high. There's a price tax now. But what they clearly meant by that, you have more flexibility, is you can slightly now mix and match between these Force Dispositions, and they could add in more Forces Dispositions in books or what have you in the future. So that if you want to have an army if you want to have your army that's got special rules for certain types of units, you can now mix and match that together. So you want to have an army as good as, I'll use Space Marines as an example. If you want to have an army that's got special rules for Terminators and Land Speeders, you can probably do that now. Whereas before, you couldn't do something like that because of how they've written, because how you picked your whatever it's called, your battle trait, or whatever it was going to be, whatever they called it back then. That's like, this is the task force you're going to play as. Now you can mix and match a little bit to a certain degrees, especially with the newer ones where they have they're a bit less. So you can make an army which has a theme which is a bit more however you want it to be. And I do think that's cool. I think it was slightly confusing how they initially communicated it, but seeing it in practice now, I actually think it is kind of cool. But it will take, because right now a lot of the best attachments are arguably still some of the existing ones, and they're 3DP.
Yeah, I think so.
So you're not gonna, so you might not jump off just yet. But it does give you more flexibility if you've always wanted to have a list which is doing cool stuff with one thing and cool stuff with something else. Because before, which I think is, especially with sticking with Space Marines as the example, because you've got a great image here of, I'm going to assume, White Scars. And a lot of when they brought out like the First Company and Siege Breaker, whatever they were, all the things they called them before, they were all archetypes based around the chapters.
Yeah.
But they wanted to give you flexibility. So the one that was clearly the Imperial Fists wasn't called the Imperial Fists, because you could play Imperial Fists with any kind of with any chapter if you wanted to, which I thought I wasn't too much of a fan. I mean, it seemed like a nice idea. It did take some of the flavor away from different chapters. But what they've done now is they've taken that to another level now with the Force Dispositions, that you can mix and match different elements to make your own chapter and what your chapter's specifically good at. And I think that's awesome. Hats off to them.
Yeah, because one of the Black Templars ones is just specifically around the Emperor's Champion, just to buff that one character, which is very niche, but is a cool concept that you can do. So I was obviously looking at the Custodes one, and I normally play the Emperor's Lions, which is weirdly not a 3DP one, it's a 2DP. So technically I can add an extra 1DP detachment, and the 3 new detachments that they've given us, here is my juicy new rules for me to play with. And it's like, one is specifically around Terminators, and it's like, okay, I've got a unit of the Forge World Terminators, so that, I mean, I could technically add, but it's not a huge boon. but that is one DP. There's one specifically around Sisters of Battle, which I don't have any in my army, but it's got some cool rules. And then the other one is specifically around Dreadnought, which again, I don't have any. So I was sort of looking at this and going, oh, yay, there's all these cool rules for my army that don't affect my specific army whatsoever. And maybe that's just my niche, but it's like, oh, I don't actually get to enjoy any of these unless I want to build and paint some new models. Which is in a way is good. It's given me some ideas for theming and kit bashing, stuff like that. Potentially I could just take one of those to unlock a different Force Disposition, because the one that the Lions has, it requires doing lots of actions, and it's like, okay, my army doesn't want to actually be doing that, so maybe I need to take one of the ones which is, I think unlocks Purge the Foe, so I can just do a bit more fighting over objectives, which is probably more my preferred play style. And I think that's the thing I need to understand more, is what does the Force Disposition actually mean? What do the mission relate to? And how does that best fit my personal play style, but also what my army's got? And I feel like that is a massive wealth of reading that we need to learn about. It's sort of in the app, so we can go on to the app section there, because obviously the app is now out. Force dispositions are in there, but only as part of the war journal, as far as I can see. And we did a bit of a test. So obviously we didn't play a game together, but we realized you can share codes, because it's quite cool. You do this battle set, and you've got to put your names in, and you do a date. You can link to a BCP, so you can link it to a specific event with your account. And it will submit your scores for you, which is kind of cool. So it's doing like the old tabletop battles app and making that completely redundant now, which is good. Yeah, you put in your army. So you select an army that you've created from the Battleforge section of the app. So it plugs that in there immediately, and it gives you your Force Disposition that are available to you. According to this, it is a checkbox for the Battle Ready. So it feels like at this point, well, in the screenshot it is. In fact, if I just try and load up the app now.
Where is that, though?
So you go War Journal. Hold on, let's delete the game.
We can do this live. We'll do this live.
So let's delete the current game.
Yeah,
so
you're right. You are
War Journal.
You're right. There is a tick box. So it is.
It is. So it is works. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it does work. Okay, cool. That's good. So yeah,
I take it back everybody. I was wrong. There is a tick box. It's it is just ticked by default. It just assumes that.
Yes, it ticks it by default. You can't see it on the screenshot, but on my screen, if anyone can see that, there's an option to connect with your opponents or set up your opponent's army. If you do set up your opponent's army, it just gives you their faction and which detachments they have, so it can get the correct amount of Force Dispositions for you to select. Or you can do a code, so you can generate a code or share a code. Annoyingly, when you generate it, you don't have a way of copying and pasting it in any way. Yeah, have you found a way of copying and pasting it?
I couldn't find a way, which I think is a minor annoyance, because it means you have to
remember it and type it in, or screenshot it, load it up into your pictures.
If functionality would allow, if functionality would allow them to do it, or an update,
just go send to WhatsApp or whatever,
or just allow a copy or allow a QR code option. That's what
what I would like.
Because if you're in person, then you can be like, give me my QR code, and it pops up, and then the opponent just scans it.
Well, I was just going to say, surely it can do NFT, right? It can just you can just bump your phones together.
Okay, yeah.
And
NFC,
it would connect automatically. That would be a cool way of doing it as well.
I think that's more device dependent, though.
True. Yeah,
I imagine not every phone can do that.
Yeah, because I guess you don't
have to.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I need to send you the code, right? But normally we're in the same place, so I would just show you my screen, I guess, and you would type it in. But that still takes a bit too much time, whereas, as you say, maybe a QR code or something is just a bit quicker.
I think a QR code is a nice app. It's like 6 digits, so it's fairly straightforward.
It's not the end of the world, right?
And most of the games are going to be. It was slightly convoluted for us, and we're talking about copying and pasting because we were doing it over WhatsApp.
Yes, and no one. However, that's not how you play Warhammer, right?
If we were in person, it would be a case of there's the code, type that in.
Yeah,
and
true.
The fact And the fact that it works is magic. It's literally however they programmed it is real. It's really, really great because it just literally instantly then gives you you have full access to your opponent's army list, all of their rules, all of their stratagems, all of their enhancements, everything they've chosen in their list, you have access to. Whether you bought
Yes.
the codex, you don't even have to buy the codex. You just have full access. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it basically gives you Battle Forge for your opponent as well. And there's a little tab at the top to be your army, your opponent's army. And as we were testing it out, you can create an army that you don't actually have in Battle Forge that you don't have the rules for, I guess. But then when you share it, I get all the rules, which is odd.
It's a very we're just messing around with it. It's a little bit janky because you can't really make a list using the new rules. You can't make a complete 11th edition list in the app unless you've unlocked it with the codex. You can build a list. You can start chucking units in there, but you can't like attach them. As far as I can tell, you can't like give enhancements. You can't attach. I was just testing around making a sororitas list. When we were testing yesterday, I couldn't find a way to like add enhancements or add a unit to lead a leader to lead a unit.
Because normally you just like tap onto the thing and it gives you the war gear options, and then you add the enhancements there. So I guess maybe they've taken it off if you don't have access to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you add it, where you add in who leads the unit. So you might be able to.
Yeah, you can do that. I think you do that on the. I think you do it on the leader itself. You can go like attach units in the same place where the enhancements is, and then there's a drop down of all your units that are in your list that you can attach it to. And then when you do that, under that unit that you've attached it to, it also says, my custody guard are being led by a blade champion, for example, and it gives it to you there, which is quite a cool little detail, I thought. Normally when an app comes out, I always complain about the functionality of it being dreadful. Actually, I sort of don't really have any complaints about it. My main complaints is maybe around the scoring and the mission setup. There's a lot of complexity there, and the Force Disposition stuff. But they've done a lot of good work here. Like, this isn't easy. Like, last edition, the app was pretty rubbish in comparison. It didn't really change a whole lot from the previous edition, whereas now they've done a lot more effort into this, which is, props to them. It's really good. But yeah, when you set up a game, if I can quickly go through it, it's a shame I can't screen share it, I don't think, to record it. Maybe I can if I do this. Maybe a little here.
Okay, I found where.
Can you see that?
I can't see, but I found where attached to unit is now. I couldn't see what it was. Okay, okay, that means I've got to go back and say whether I was wrong before. Okay, no, you can attach to unit. You can attach to unit. So I didn't know where that was. It's you touch the three dots and then you can attach to unit. For some reason, that's where you do it. So you can do that for a codex you don't know.
Oh no.
But very niche scenario where you'd need to be giving your opponent access to your list. I suppose in a world where you do not want to, where you prefer to not be using the app, for example, and you haven't bought the codex for whatever reason, you chose not to, but you do have an entirely valid list that you've painstakingly written down on paper. You could then still put it into the app and share it with your opponent. But it feels like it's a very niche scenario, but it is an interesting nuance that you can technically make a list with a codex you don't own and share that with someone, and it will unlock for them. But I feel that's a very small. To take advantage of that, I imagine you'd have to be having multiple Warhammer Plus accounts, so it's probably not worth it. Yeah,
I mean, there could be a case where let's say we're both 40k players, but we both want to play Orc, and neither of us have played Orcs before, but we got the box set, so we now have Orc model. In a month's time, let's say, the new Orc Codex is probably going to come out, so we don't want to buy the current one. So for this 1 month, while we wait for the new Codex to come out, or maybe, let's say, we want to play Chaos and we don't know when that Chaos Codex is coming out, we're in a bit of a pickle, because it's like...
Buy the Codex.
Well, that is the answer.
That's the way it's always been. It's always been.
but you're buying it for a very limited time of, say, a month or two. That feels like a waste of money. But then I'm a bit like, I will just struggle through for a month if it's.
Do you have all the codexes already, Phil?
I do, because
so you
of
are
the podcast.
you are trying to empathize, and that's with that scenario. So because it's not a
'cause there's
situation you're in.
I'm not personally in though, because I have all the temp fed codexes unlocked from my account, because we bought copies to review. We didn't get review copies because we don't get them. But me and Dan had all the temp fed codexes.
My feeling on this is that the vast majority of people right now who are going to be playing Space Marines already have a Space Marines codex.
100% agree with you.
And I think it is possible there are lots of people there could be, I don't know, I have no idea how. There could be people who are not currently Orc players who are looking to get into Orcs as a result of this. And I see it from the perspective from them that they don't want to, that they think, oh, there'll be a Codex Orcs coming out soon. There might be. We don't know how far away it could be. It could be months away. Could be weeks away. We genuinely just don't know. But it will be coming at some point. And if you aren't already playing, if you were deciding that you're going to start playing Orcs for the first time, and this box is what's encouraging you to do that, I can see why that makes you could be thinking, well, what's the point of me buying a codex if in a few months there's a new one? But it could be 6 months, it could be a year. We don't really know.
Yeah. So personally, I would like Games Workshop to do a roadmap of codexes, which is normally what they would do, going ballpark first quarter, second quarter, or spring, summer, however they want to divvy it up. This is roughly when we plan to put out codexes, which would help alleviate people. Because if cool, my codex isn't even coming out this year, so I'll just buy the existing one. My Orc codex is probably coming out in the next 2 months, I'll hold off. I think that would help solve some of this problem. My other suggestion actually would be just buy the codex direct from Games Workshop, keep the receipt, and if in a month's time they produce a new codex, email their complaints department, their customer service, and say, I bought this, but you've just produced a new copy. Here's my receipt. I would like a refund or something. I think I've heard that they do it for people that recently bought codexes and battle tome that have then just been subsequently replaced, because they don't give you any notice of it, or very little notice, but they don't advertise the fact that they do it. So that is what I would suggest people do. But obviously that's not guaranteed to happen.
Especially not now you're telling everyone to do it.
Well, possibly, yes. Well, I used to be an advocate of keeping all your Games Workshop stuff completely sealed and sealed and in boxes, because you could always return it, no questions asked, from Games Workshop. And I mentioned that on the podcast, and guess what? You can't do that anymore. They've changed their policy.
I don't know if that's because you said it, or
no, it's just a coincidence, I'm sure. But maybe clearly many people were doing it, and they were like, how can we save some money, make people have receipt, or go, we don't stock this box anymore, or this version of this box anymore because it's been reboxed, so therefore we're not going to give returns on it. Even though weirdly on the website they do advertise lifetime returns and guarantee.
They do for a product that you buy directly from them and you have the receipts to them. But let's be honest, if the reason they would have changed that is because people will have it was probably a very strong goodwill gesture until they started realizing that there are people abusing it. There are people abusing that by. Who knew people in the Warhammer community would abuse loopholes? Who could have foreseen such a scenario? But you could just buy it for cheaper from somewhere else and then take it back to Games Workshop for getting the full rate. In a manner of speaking, you're not really saving any money, because ultimately if you're purchasing it from a other retailer for less, but then taking it to Games Workshop to get credit, you can only really use it for something that's more expensive anyway. So it's a kind of a false economy, but clearly people were abusing it in some fashion, or they're having people stealing stock and then just trading it in.
Maybe,
who knows what it was?
Maybe,
but there was a time when Games Workshop was very flexible. Oh, you have something you bought, you changed your mind, you don't have the receipt. That's great. We'll do an easy swap. Clearly the system was being abused in some way. It may have been two other ways, which we haven't mentioned. It was being abused in some ways. Now it's not the case.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
But yeah, that's true. Just quickly rounding off the last bit about the app update. I like the War Journal. However, it's still got some quite confusing elements to it. So you select your Force Dispositions, but again, there's nowhere explaining what the dispositions are unless you set up a game.
No. You're
What
wrong.
am
You're
I
wrong,
missing
Phil.
something? Oh, am
You can see it. So you can see it when you set up your list in Battleforge, or when you're just going through the reference. You can see what they are. They're not
Oh,
called
no,
force
no, sorry.
dispositions. They're called detachments, and that's all the information there.
No, but sorry, but what I mean is, okay, I've got a detachment that has a force disposition of some kind, but I want to know what missions that will make me play. So I want to know, am I doing an action? Am I purging the foe? Am I, have I got kill points? Or have I got to hold more? Like,
As in when you're building the list.
yeah, so when I'm building the list, I've got these detachments, but I have no context for how I'm meant to play the mission. And the only way to do that is to create a battle in the war journal, link it with someone else who also has a code to give me, and read through them, or get the cards, which I don't currently have, and read through them all.
I mean,
and that's what I need to sort of unlock the last piece of the puzzle for like how this game's played.
As it stands, I mean, if you when you're going through the app and you're choosing what of the detachments that you're using, it tells you if it's purge the foe, is it priority assets, or what have you. It doesn't tell you what that means.
No, exactly. That's my point.
Because it won't. Because it will only know what it means when you know what your opponent has.
Well, so
that's the way that's the way it works.
Each one has like 5 different sort of mission, basically. Yeah, each disposition has 5 variants depending on your opponent, but you should be able to read what they are to know up front. Because to list build to win a mission, you need to know what the mission is, even if it's a choice of 5 thing.
Yeah, but I can see where you're coming from, but I think the purposes of, I mean, I have to look in the app to see where it can tell you what purge the foe does. As an example,
other than when you get to the actual when you get to the war journal bit, it tells you what your primary mission is when you're playing the game, but it doesn't show you beforehand. So spoilers, I found something last night. In fact, wait, it's not this one. It's this page. So it's called GDM 2026. Now, this has all the rules, so it's one of those dubious sorts of websites maybe, but all of this is given for you for free on the app, but it's just showing you in a much better way. So you got your force disposition. So let's say I'm purge the foe. So you can click on that, and it now shows you against your opponent what version of the mission you are that you're going to play. Unstoppable force, meat grinder, punishment, for example. So at least you know that. But then you can also, I believe, if you go primary mission, so let's say you have purge the foe and I have purge the foe, so therefore we'd be playing meat grinder, and I want to tailor my army to achieve those objectives from that mission. So I can go to the primary mission section, I can click on purge the foe. These are the 5 different options, so I know I'm doing meat grinder. And then this now tells me what mission is, which is basically, so scoring end of any battle round. At the end of your turn, 1 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn. And then from the second battle round onward, end of the command phase, you control 1 or more objectives. You score 4 VP, and that excludes your home objective. And then from the second battle round onwards, when it's the end of the turn, more enemy units were destroyed this turn than friendly units were destroyed, 5 VP. And I guess you control your opponent's home objective, also 5 VP. It's like, cool, now I have the context of how my army needs to play this mission. So therefore it gives me an idea of maybe the kind of units I want to include or exclude from my list building to play this game. But then you go, well, actually, I need to look through now all of these cards to understand what I do. So you can just easily go through all of them to read. And this is where it's like there's a whole bunch of rules. Like, I need to read all of these. I need to read all 5 for each detachment that unlocks a particular force disposition, which is potentially between 2 and 3, to understand what kind of missions I want to be playing, to then be able to pick the force disposition and then build an army to do these missions. It's like a lot of stuff.
I'm trying to think, from my perspective, I completely disagree, because what I think is very neat in the app is it doesn't bog you down with that kind of thing. It's like, you build the list you want to take, optimize with the units you want to take, and then it says to you, this is your opponent, this is the kind of mission you're doing, and then it just tells you. I think it is, but then that's just how I think. I don't have to be overloading myself with information and list building for all these various combinations of who I might ever play. But there will be some people who want to do that. and that's I mean they do want to do so. Because it is a bit odd though that the app doesn't have a repository for that information. Like there isn't just like to your point, there's like meat grinders a mission, but it's not in the app. Why?
It's
is it just
in
they
the
haven't-
war journal, but not in like
you can't search for
it's not in the reference section, so
Yeah,
you can't just look it up,
Yeah,
which is odd.
I think it is curious, and maybe people will let us know in the comments if that's changed, or it could be something that they're going to add in. I think it's definitely worth flagging as something that would be. I think to your point, some people will want that information to know for what does this mean? Because this is if you want to min max the perfect list to be able to deal with any and all comers, which I'm sure the more I say that, yes, of course, there's someone who's going to want to do that, probably in America. And no offense to the hardcore community, the hardcore competitive players. You're the reason the hobby is so successful and we can all enjoy it. So, but I think it is valid though that you can't just see that the missions themselves aren't in the app. That's a bit odd.
Yeah,
but it's got all the terrain layouts 50 different times for different combinations. But there's 3 terrain layouts, but they're in there so many different times. They don't need to be in there that many times. It could be a current limitation of the app, and that's something because I think that should be added in. But I still don't feel that I don't think it's that. I don't feel it's that necessary because it's a case of I've got this army I'm going to use. My opponent has this army. Now here's what my objectives could be.
So the only reason why I wanted to know this is so Lions of the Emperor, which is a detachment I not normally play with my Custodian / Under Warrior. It is disruption. So I created a temporary game with you in the War Journal, and I was reading through the missions, and I was like, I don't actually want to do this. So it might have been something like, I don't know, delaying action. Let's see if I can find the one it was. And maybe it'd be unique to oh God, is it making me out to be a liar? I can't remember which one it was now. But basically it was do an action to win the game. And maybe it's like, oh, this area.
Do you not like doing that with your filthy custodies?
Well, no, because exactly, it's like do some actions with your 2,000 points army that has like 4 units.
I mean,
it's like I can't afford to do actions, but that's what it's making me do, and so therefore it's like, oh, actually, no. Oh, yeah, here is an objective action. So it's like, so I need to know this going into a game. I can't just be like, oh, let's create a fun list. And then it's like, oh, no, here you are. To win the game, you need to do a bunch of actions. And it's like, I don't want to play action with that particular army. And if I do, I need to make sure I can bring extra units like sisters or imperial agents or something to enable me to still do action. So that's sort of why I wanted some upfront notice. And trying to do that in the app was very difficult because I had to create a fresh game each time to be able to do that, which is incredibly time consuming. Whereas here it's all laid out.
You know what? That's very fair. I wanted to say something like, well, yeah, you've got this stupidly overpowered army that goes in tables, whatever it comes up against.
Now, what army do you play against? You play, Richard?
You talk about use Chaos Knights and I get tabled by the likes of you.
But my point is, you've got an army that's incredibly strong, has low model count, and probably doesn't want to be doing actions.
Well,
although I think you can do
actions
and shoot.
The good news is Titanic units can do actions and other stuff.
Well, there you go.
I think they can do actions in anything now. I think that's changed a bit. But you have convinced me, Phil, that what would be a good thing to be adding into the app would be the ability because currently, if you look at it, there's different. So I think it doesn't matter if you are a purge. What the types of one? What are they called? What's an example of a? I'll look it up.
So there's like disruption.
So you've got reconnaissance.
Say
your force disposition is reconnaissance. Then it would be cool if within the app you could see what the various types of missions you could be coming up against with that.
Or you could tap on, whenever it said Purge of Fate, you could tap on it. Even if it said this army style is predominantly about killing your opponent and killing more of their units than your units. So like a brief overview. If reconnaissance this is predominantly around moving around the board and scoring table quarters, or this is about outscoring your opponent on objectives, or this is a detachment or disposition that is mostly doing action on things. Like, just give me a brief overview of what all of those things are, even if that's just a page in the references. Like, I just need something, and the names allude to it, but that's only because I played.
Here's something I wonder. Here's something I do wonder. Do you need is there a code with chapter approved, or is it or not?
Possibly. I wouldn't have thought so, because they don't ever do codes for decks of cards.
Because if
Well,
there
they haven't
isn't,
historically.
because if there isn't, you don't need to buy chapter approved because it's all in the app. However, currently there is this where it's not the only way. I don't want to say something as cynical as the only way you can view the missions in advance is to buy the cards. Otherwise, you'll just be surprised when you go into the war journal. Or it could be it's not been added in yet. If we wanted to be, because there is some limited, the chapter approved functionality is a little bit janky in the app at the minute. So maybe it's something that's due to be added in at the weekend or next week. They haven't said anything on I don't believe at time of recording there's been anything said in Warhammer community or anything that there are things are not yet in the app, or maybe this is something that they can now realize and people say, hey, it's not in the app, so put on the socials this is it's a bit weird this isn't in there, because as it stands, if someone that's, I think it's what's key to point out from a player's usability perspective is if you want to know what those missions are, you have to go to a third-party website, and if you're using the app, you can't get that information, and that's a shame because the app,
or not very easily. Yeah,
it's a shame because the app is really, really good.
Yeah,
the way you can share your lists is phenomenal.
What's interesting is that the app for doing the war journal section is so good, as you rightly point out. You don't even need the cards anymore because it shows you the mission layouts and the terrain layout, and you can select or customize them. It gives you the option to draw your cards digitally, much like Tabletop Battles did. So you don't even need the cards to randomly draw them. You just tap on the app, draw card. Now, there are some elements to it where you can just keep tapping infinitely and draw 50 cards. It should have some self-checking to be like, well, you can tap maximum of 2 a turn or something, or discard up. You've got to discard some before you draw more. It needs some sort of general checking like that. And I think in a way the missions are so complicated in a way, and the scoring's quite complicated, that you can't just play with cards and jot down the score. Having an app that sort of handholds you through it is much better. So then you go, well, what is the point of those cards? And I still feel like you're missing a few bits. You're missing the general order of starting a mission, although the war journal sort of walks you through that. You get the maps, but I still feel like we're missing the keys on those maps.
Yeah,
so I've noticed on the terrain, there's little circles that say like CF, DC and things like that. And I'm like, what do they mean? Like, I don't understand those.
Yeah,
and I feel like there needs to be a key.
In the app, there is here's what the key means, and then there's no symbols. It doesn't actually tell you.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that as well. Yeah,
and so I think it might be that there's something missing from the app, or it's not fully updated yet, which is possible. So hopefully that's something that's intended. I would say hopefully that's something intended to be fixed, because at the minute that is a bit weird. You've talked me around to why I think it would be good to be able to see the potential missions you could be playing, and in many ways, why can you not see the potential missions you could be playing in the app anyway? That's a bit odd.
Because all the rules are there, and that's why I don't mind showing that website, even if it's technically showing off Games Workshop rules, because it's not like that. It's not like it's a codex where you have to buy the rules to get them. These rules are available for free in the app now, and all it's doing is showing you that already. And I believe, I don't know if it's true, but a lot of that information was given to TO in advance for free because they knew a lot of people will have events coming up. So they gave out a PDF to those people, and a lot of that's been widely circulated around as well. So a lot of people have had access to this sort of thing beforehand. So I think it's just a correlation of that info that Games Workshop gave out. And it's just a much handier way of accessing what Games Workshop has given out for free in the app, but the app's just a very awkward way of finding that detail. So that information should be how I've, when I showed it, how they laid it out, would be great for the app to also do something like that, just so you can get a brief overview of what those things should be. And like I said, a key for the map, basically. For the layouts and stuff like that. I think that's like the only thing that's really missing so far. I haven't noticed because I know Legends are back in the app, but I've not checked that out yet. I've not checked if actually there's like a little toggle anywhere.
Legends are not in the app. Where are they? Where are the Legends?
Well, they said they would be in the app.
Who? What?
Like Games Workshop, they said Legends So hold on. It's just if I scroll through Astra Militarum, if there be a bunch of old. Oh, hold on. Let's go Imperial Armor.
Was that
Oh,
what
you're
they
right.
did?
They're not. But do you know what they did? Because I think this is the same for AOS. They're not in the reference section, but they're in the army build. So I bet if you go and let's say create an Astra Militarum force, I bet you can find some Forge World unit. So let's go other data sheet. Gorgon. No. So obviously the app isn't fully updated.
So does it say in this article that we have on screen right now that the Legends are back? Or is this something they've said previously?
They said previously, and obviously, so they talk about, the Minotaurum Field Manual. You sent me a link to talk about that, because actually that's quite good in terms of, that's now no longer a PDF, it's a web page, so it loads
it's worse.
incredibly quickly.
It's good and bad, Phil, because it's not easy to see the difference. It's like the one thing that was good about the old Field Manual was like it would highlight the changes, and this doesn't highlight anything.
Yes,
so you have no idea what's changed, and
so yeah,
I think that's an issue.
I agree, but I like how quickly it loads up. So this is, for example, Adeptus Custodes. It gives you your detachments and what they are. It gives you the points cost for everything, but it hasn't given you the points variation between versions. So they haven't said this has gone up 10 points, this has gone down 20 points. That I would like to see.
Yeah.
I wonder if they haven't done it because it's a new edition, but because the codexes are still valid, I still think it's useful to know what has gone up and what hasn't, even if it's a new edition of the game. But I can feel like maybe that's why they didn't bother. But I think they should still do it.
I agree. I think I would assume it's because it's entering the new edition. So this is the points for the new edition. So it does.
But look,
to be clear, to support that rationale, it does say version 1.0.
True, and there is a toggle here that says show legends. And it does say, because I've noticed the leader stuff.
Go to E. Why is there's no E for it? Well, unless they're at the bottom, because there's no Elysium. Because Elysium drop centers.
But here we go. Legends. It's at the very bottom. But then they're not in the app, so they're obviously coming at some point. I would hope. Interesting. Yeah, 35 points. Yeah, so much. I wish half of this stuff would come back. This is making me cry inside. But it's interesting that some of the leader units do reference like Grenadier Squad, which are legend specific units. So legends are here, but not in the app
as well. It could be there's some stuff missing from the app.
Yeah, it might be they roll that out like once the game is technically like launched, whether that's tomorrow or like in a week's time or so. They might go. Legends isn't really a priority for launch date, so and again, it's content for a later time. So they will do that then. So yeah, that would be interesting.
Or they forgot that they said it'd be in the app, or they didn't say it was in the app. Get the Wayback Machine up. I don't know if you need that.
Yeah, they said
I'm still waiting for the app to have Crusade support. So, but you know what they did? They killed Crusade. They killed Crusade rather than have the support in the app.
Because they realised they couldn't do it, I imagine. Okay, right.
Fair play, G-Dubs. I'll never call you. I can't call you out anymore for not having a Crusade support in the app.
Yeah, let's talk about the very last thing. So obviously, Armageddon came out a few weeks ago. Great. Hasn't sold out yet. It could be good or not for Games Workshop. Who knows? Then last week on pre-order was the campaign deck, chapter approved. Yeah, I think that then came out. And also the terrain area set. So this is the thing that's worth talking about because I forgot it was on sale until like the afternoon, at which point it was out of stock. It says temporarily out of stock. But if we were to assume they don't have any stock made, like coming from China or wherever it's manufactured, it will still be a few months away to get hold of it. I want to play a game of 40k when my box arrives and I get my cards, I've got my physical rule book. Can I play 40k immediately?
No.
The answer's no, because I don't have the all singing, all dancing, the one thing they sold us this edition's all about, which is area terrain. And I don't have this one. I would prefer the Games Workshop official one because it's sort of nice card stock. It's not neoprene matte.
Well, there should be enough of these for everybody to play the game.
Yeah,
and there isn't. There hasn't been enough. It's like they are still like Armageddon is still available.
Yeah.
So everyone who's buying Armageddon, even if you're splitting that, you're going to need one copy of the terrain area set, and there's a disparity there. So unless someone's out there buying
So
all the terrain sets, so that other people can buy them,
maybe,
and I can think of at least a few places that might be wanting to do such a thing.
Yeah, so we'll get on with that in a second. Hold on. But chapter approved normally always sells out. And I wonder if it hasn't sold out because it's actually in Armageddon this time. And I feel like last time it wasn't in Leviathan and it was sold separately. But it's interesting that also the core rules is sold out. Clearly people, because even if you, what I find really puzzling is it should have just been in the Armageddon box. It doesn't feel like it's that big of a stretch to have included it because you've included everything else. I would have honestly preferred the area terrain set over the narrative campaign deck and the narrative book. Those two things you could have bundled together and sold as its own thing to be like, here's the story of Armageddon, here's the campaign deck to play that. That's its own box. And the area terrain set should have been in Armageddon because then everyone who's bought Armageddon can immediately start playing the new game. Whereas now I'm in the same situation as last year where it's like chapter approved isn't out yet or it's sold out. I can't get hold of it for a few months. I can't play the game unless I'm, using a friend's copy or something like that. And at least with that it's normally shared. And likewise, if I'm playing 40k and I went around Dan's house, I imagine Dan might have a copy of this. But if you don't have a copy and I don't have a copy, we can't have a game.
You're wrong. Well, wait, you're talking about chapter approved or the terrain?
Terrain now, I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very weird that it's not available. Like they've run out of stock. There has to be, because it's weird that they could have put that in Armageddon instead of the Dominatus deck.
Yeah.
And they would have made more money because it's £2 cheaper. They would have made more money in theory by doing that.
But less people would have bought it. Less people would have bought the Dominators separate.
I think that's a reason why you could bundle it, why you'd want to put the Dominatus deck in Armageddon, because less people are actually going to buy it, I would guess. So bundle it in Armageddon so more people will be playing Dominatus. Maybe it's the thing they really want to push and that's why they put it in there. But you can't play, you need the terrain area set to play the game.
Yeah,
there is no mission anymore which exists which doesn't use area terrain sets, and you can't buy it. It's sold out instantly. It's sold out. It's sold out quick. I also forgot. I meant to buy it. I looked at mid-morning and it was sold out. I then looked at some third parties and they didn't have it either.
Yeah, so I looked on Element Games. They were not selling it at all. Now we look at Element Game. They are saying they sold it, but it was now sold out and is unavailable for 15. I'm 100% sure, or maybe 99% sure, that they weren't selling it because I checked. But they, however, now have their own sets available for twice the price at £35, which is steep. I mean, maybe it's not made of neoprene mats or something, so maybe that's nicer than card, but is more expensive. And other third-party site, Wayland Games we saw. Oh, it's making me do a bot thing. Hold on. I don't know why. So Wayland Games,
this is it, folks. He's human. He's proven.
I am human. Yeah, they've got terrain area plates, which are very basic MDF ones, and I would almost be tempted to pick these up, though they're a bit expensive, because I can then add on my own ruin and rubble. So I would just use this as a template, and I would decorate it with my own bits of sand and stuff and paint it up myself. So it's more physically 3D, and I would put beams in there and things like that, or bits of I don't think I would actually build on the terrain, but I'd almost be tempted to. Like, you could literally glue your terrain down onto it and go, well, that's just a footprint, but I'd potentially be cautious about that and still keep the main terrain separate in case Games Workshop do a humdinger on us next edition and be like, we're changing the size of all the area terrain, so you've got to buy new ones. And to be honest, they might do that next year with Chapter Approved. They might be like, we've changed the size and shapes of all our area terrain to mix things up a bit. And so chuck all away those.
If there's some logistic issues with their factories in China, they might have to do that anyway, because where else are they? But it's weird to me. It's really weird that Games Workshop don't appear to have gone big on selling them in third party. That this terrain set with third parties, and most of those third parties are selling their own versions at a vastly or a much higher price.
Double the price.
I nearly said inflated, but I don't think that's fair. I don't necessarily think that they are going out their way to overprice it. That just these may be very good pricing based on what it costs. or they're all taking advantage of the fact that Games Workshop just don't have enough stock for it. But that's what's kind of odd, that Games Workshop actively have clearly not got enough stock. Yeah, a bunch of third parties have got their own versions, which are over double the price.
Yeah.
And before we go on this, I wanted to actually, this is handy because for those who are watching the video, you see a little bit of rubble, little bits of rubble on them. These don't matter. Those are purely decorative. And do you know how I know this? Do you know how I know this, Phil?
Does it say it in the rule?
No, I don't actually know. I'm just going. If you go back to the Element Games tab, you will notice that they do not have the little bits of rubble. No, this is Wayland Games does.
Oh, on the I see what you mean.
Wayland Games does, but Element,
that's a decorative choice.
So on Element, so what is an objective and what isn't? Because those triangles aren't even really the right size.
Well, they're the correct size as prescribed by Games Workshop, but they're not the same style. So, for example, these triangles on Element are completely squared off.
Yeah.
But these ones here are wiggly line. These ones are wiggly lines.
Look at the PDF. They are not the same.
No.
If this is apparently the official terrain. Matter? Well, that's the question. Does it matter?
Because when is a terrain?
When is an objective not objective? What is the size of an objective? If this was prepared and produced in Games, we're saying this is what an objective is, and you can't buy this, but you can go to Element Games, and this is no disrespect on Element. This is just pointing out visual differences. The Element Games versions are not wiggly like this. It's a straight line, and it doesn't have the little rubble parts coming out of it. So if you're on the rubble, does that count as being on the objective? I've always assumed it does.
Yeah,
but there are third parties selling items
ones without
which don't have that and a different.
So the only time it really makes a difference is, let's say you've got an army build with a certain movement where you can be like, cool. Turn 1, I know I can turbo boost or whatever you might do, advance a unit or jet bikes to just tow into one of these rubble piles, because if I position, and I practice my games loads and I'm going to go to a tournament, I practice my games, I know if I position my unit here, I can move onto one of these rubble pieces to claim that objective. Turn 1, that's my strategy that I'm going to do every game. And then you go to an event that doesn't have those rubble pieces, that instead just have these square setups. You're like, oh, you've ruined my tactic and my positioning that I practiced for, because I was hoping for that extra inch or half an inch that I could tailor my army towards. I mean, that's a very niche competitive
I don't think it's visual. I think it's
thing.
It's completely it is vital all the time. It's the equivalent of saying all the objectives we're going to use are 40 mil bases, and then saying, but we haven't got any 40 mils, so we're just going to use 25 mils. That's a different game, and that's what is actually, that's kind of, either an objective is a defined size, defined footprint across all games. We didn't touch on it in this, but when they first did the map layouts, they were minuscule. Like this, it was like, this is a quarter of an inch. Like the level of precision to how far everything is apart was like incredibly precise. So when
wasn't that on the page that you sent me before? Hold on, let's see if I've still got it. No, that's
I remember
not
being really confused about like how overly specific they were in the layouts of where the terrain should be, how far apart everything should be in the map layouts. So when you change those shapes, which is what is in the instance of what Element have done with their designs, are they still valid? What is still valid? What isn't it? When is objective not objective?
They are the prescribed shape and measurement.
So here's the question: Here's the question: the Games Workshop, is this Element Games terrain valid? Because it's not the same shape as the official ones. Well, so which is the real ones?
I think both. I think the idea is area terrains are meant to be thematic now, so it shouldn't matter if the sizes are slightly off. It's all about thematic. It's all about, narrative. Nah. But I imagine most people will be like, no, I want the official Games Workshop ones with their extra wiggly bit.
No, the hardcore community of professional gamers will decide what is the real ones. So which is it? Is it these ones with the ones with the wobbly lines on the triangles? And is it the ones which have got, like, because Wayland Games, they are carbon copies of all it appears to be. They are the exact same shapes.
So they've got wiggly bit.
They've got wiggly bits. They've got what appears
on the side bit. Oh yeah, no, but they've got different size wiggly bits. So look at this wiggly bit on this guy. If you're just listening and not watching, I'm sorry, everyone. But the wiggly bit on the main area terrain that's a triangle shape that is a tiny little bit of rubble pile on the official Games Workshop one, whereas the Wayland game ones have a much longer wiggle, but it doesn't go out as much. So that they
what's the real
made
shape?
up their own.
What is the real shape here? What is when if it feels like there is Games Workshop have not released enough of the official. Well, not being, I mean, they may have production issues. I don't know. Maybe they weren't able to manufacture enough, and that's why they weren't in the main box. Who knows? But the reality is that they have not been able to. They have not provided enough of these objective terrain pieces, area terrain layout pieces for you to be able to play it, for people to be able to buy them. And
however,
hang on.
Oh, we're not getting into that yet.
I just want to get into that just yet. But third parties are, which is basically if you want to play the primary way you want to play, you're going to be able to do that is to buy from third parties who are manufacturing, by the looks of it, pieces which are not the same shape.
They're like sort of Timo. They're like slightly
Timo
different.
But it's not like a 40mm objective. When a 40mm objective was a 40mm objective way, the 5-inch pie plate was a 5-inch plate. You knew how big it always was. Now we're in a world where the third-party manufacturers are making terrain pieces which are objectives. They are in theory, what we've been told is the exact size of objectives are completely different shapes. They've got knobbly bits, or they've got bendy bits, which aren't on the same one.
size, but the knobbly bits and the shape of like the broken pieces are different and unique to them. So they're not identical to Games Workshop ones, which sort of surprised me. But I think it's because they didn't have access to them, and the turnaround for what they've done is quite quick, which is sort of impressive in and of itself.
But are they valid?
Well, yeah, of course.
Can you? No, you can't say, "Oh yeah, of course." I don't think you can.
Well,
say
here's
that.
the thing: they're as valid as so long as TOs buy them, right? If the TOs for tournament, because that's where it really matters. Like at home, do what you want, and it's doesn't matter if my objectives have a slightly different wiggle than yours, because we're only playing on one set at a time.
I don't see what the point.
But for tournament players, I can imagine it being a bit more of an annoyance.
I don't see what the point is of having these really specific and prescriptive terrain layouts if when it comes to the size of the footprints you can just be it doesn't matter, add a little bit of wiggle room on, add an extra half an inch off the side of this one, why not, or have this one have a little indent. It completely underwrites the competitive integrity of the whole thing when you can change this. No, I mean,
part of me feels like the rubble shouldn't really. The one way they could solve it is going, well, the rubble shapes don't actually count, but then you get into a weird case of, but they're on the area terrain.
Are they there?
So
I was always wondering this, and now it doesn't. We don't know. It for me, it's like this needs clarification. What actually is an objective now? If you can just say, or is the idea you say it's just that building I put on here? Is that the idea, or is it that no, you need to have these specific footprints because now the specific footprints are not all the same size? Because if you want to buy them now, you have to buy from a third party, and they are not the same shape.
I think the measurements in the deployment map are to the hard-edged angles, which are consistently the same because they're just the pure measurements that Games Workshop gave out. It's only the extra wiggly bits which aren't really part of the measurement that are different, and that's just a little bit of nuance. In the same way, the terrain that you put on, which affects line of sight in terms of line of sight blocking, will be different from each map and each player based on what terrain they have, because they might do the proper like ruin. They might do their own set. They might do the pre-painted set when that's available. That all affects the line of sight and visibility in terms of true line of sight in a completely different way. So there is no consistency, really. And ideally, in an ideal world, it should all be narrative-based and you don't need that consistency. But I think we're talking about this more on a competitive level where people do want standardizations, right? So I guess as well.
So one thing I will say is that it does appear that in the app, I don't know if based on the app on the terrain layouts in the map, they are very specific to the shapes that have been prepared in the official release, like in the PDF. So you can see that the level of how many exact inches things are apart. If there's a point where you can add little weird wibbly, like all these little wibbly bits, one assumes are meant to be there on account of that's how they've been designed and that's how and they match up with the terrain with the layouts in the app. And I assume they'll be matching up with the cards in chapter 3. And that's why I'm getting overheated. No, it's because I just want to understand what is the official line on this? Is it just just make them roughly the right shape? Or is it, no, they have to be the specific sizes? Because now we're entering a situation. I have no idea what it's like in America and for availability there of these pieces. But if you're going to play in a competitive version of the game, which version of these terrain pieces are you using?
Yeah,
Are you using?
so on my screen, you can sort of see the terrain maps that they give you in the app. I don't know how super clear that is. And they do give the measurements, but they are like to the corners, right? And the corners don't have the wibbly bit on them.
But the shapes are all the same. I just want to know if the wibbly bits don't matter, why are they on the official designs and why are they in the official layouts?
Well, I think they. Well, I would say they do matter, but at the same time, Games Workshop doesn't care if you have different wibbly bits.
If they don't matter, then use D8s rather than D6s. What's the if it?
Okay, now you're being facetious.
I'm not being facetious.
I understand where you're coming from.
We're talking about competitive integrity. It's like if you had all your old neoprene objective markers, but your dog took a bite out of it, and then you took it to an event and said, "Oh, well, you can't actually score if you're on the bit my dog took out because it doesn't really matter." And which being a bit facetious is how I say that, but I just want to know what is an actual objective. Can you add on your own wibbly bits however you see fit? Is that up to you as a player, or is it Games Workshop haven't said? They have not said what you can do. I would like Games Workshop to say you can add on the wibbly bits as much as you want.
Well,
the diagonals can be however you want to make them look. They can be as wibbly or wobbly or straight as you need them.
Well,
it's currently not clear.
The official guidance that they gave in that first article, they gave the measurements, and I believe from Garfield, because he's one of the TOs, so he's been on one of those TO calls, I think they gave the measurements there as well. And that is what initially people were making their
we need to get Garfield in
custom. It may be. I think that they were making their own based on that, and I imagine a lot of these manufacturers were doing it based on those measurements. Although what was interesting, this triangle, this notch here isn't in the measurements. So the measurements that Games Workshop give it from like the corner to corner measurement and not this extra 2 inches, I believe. So it's worth pointing out that yes, Games Workshop didn't produce enough objective markers. However, in the Warhammer community downloads page, they have supplied us with printouts of these objective markers. Isn't that great, Rich?
People who have an A3 printer, it is.
Yes. So you told me this. You were like, oh, because I was out and about at the time, and I was like, but they've got them on the Warhammer community to print them out. And you were like, I've checked the file size and it says it's A3. And I was like, don't be ridiculous. No one has an A3 printer. And then I double checked the measurements when I got it. So in theory, this large piece here, or one of the other larger pieces, like this one here, should fit on an A4 piece of paper, but it would take the majority of the A4 piece of paper. So I sort of feel like the reason why they've designed it for A3, and it is actually A3, is because the margin that people have on their printers wouldn't allow them to fully print out these area terrains. Basically, they're too big for an A4 print. But no one, as you say, no one in the right mind has an actual A3 printer. Although maybe if you're a TO, you'd just be like, cool, I'll go to a local shop and get, 20 of these printed out. And it'll cost me like 20 quid or whatever. And there's my objectives. They're printed on crappy paper, but that's fine. My tournament will eat up these costs. But I guess if you're playing from home, it's a bit more difficult because it's like, I could print these out, but they wouldn't look very good. And I couldn't easily print them out on A4. I think what I'd be most inclined to do is try and print them out on A4, even if that requires printing, like doing a split page. So printing an A4 piece out, like one page over 2 A4, sellotaping them together. And then I would use that as a stencil onto some plasticard or XPS foam core. So I've got a hard base template that I could then decorate with my own stuff. And that's the official size. So it's similar to what I was saying with that area terrain. Oh, I don't care about being a human, so I'm not going to show it again. Those MDF version from Wayland Game. But at least it would be the official rub designated areas to keep you happy.
I'm gonna wait and get the official ones.
Well,
at least know what Games Workshop does. Assuming that anyone out there is asking Games Workshop or Games Workshop respond on it, I'd like to know what is the correct ones we should be using. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of love it if they did like really basic plastic versions of these. So like the sculpted bases, right, where it's got some detail
Alright.
just sort of built in, and they're just like, that could be a sprue, just clip it out. It's got some of the rubble detail and the plating with the rivets on, and that's just like hard plastic. Stick it down. It'd obviously be a bit deeper, maybe the cardboard, but I think that would look quite cool, and you could paint it up however you want. It could be pre-painted to match your pre-painted terrain. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think I'd prefer the Games Workshop official one, even if it's the cardboard one. But yeah, I don't really want to not have a game of 40k for like 2 or 3 months, because that's the lead time on getting more.
Yeah, I'm just confused by it. I'm disappointed that I couldn't buy the terrain these areas. So I'm mostly disappointed by, which I know, which I do appreciate. There maybe that's most likely down to circumstances outside of various people's control as to why there's not enough stock available.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're not the only people in this situation, right? There's every time there was chapter approved cards going out, there'd be half of people would be like, "Oh yeah, I bought mine, no problem," and then there'd be other people who would be like, "Well, I missed out and I haven't got hold of it," and it would be the same for this area of terrain. There'd be a bunch of people that were like, "Oh yeah, I was there Saturday morning for a pre-order and I got it in time," and then there's a bunch of people like us that were like, "Oops, I forgot." Because part of me was like, I was there ready to buy Armageddon and these objectives at the same time. I know they wanted the fanfare of Armageddon as being its own thing, but I would have much rather pre-ordered this at the exact same time if that's what was needed, because I could have done it all in one go, rather than having to, go from, 2 different sites or 2 different lots of shipping from the same company just to get hold of it. And even if you get your box, let's say you bought your Armageddon box and you ordered this, you still have to wait a whole week to get hold of to play like a proper game of 40k. I think you could muddle along, right? You could probably go, well, let's just roughly make some area terrain out of some ruin or some, shipping containers or what have you, and represent them, even if they're not the exact sizes. So you could do something that would work. Yeah. Well, I think we've talked to death now about the lead up and launch of 40k. Have you got any, like, in summary thoughts about it? What being good and bad, and I guess, are you still excited to try and play some 40k?
To try and play 40. I'm really excited. I am really excited because I like the way I've come around to the detachments, the Force Disposition stuff. I think that's going to be cool. I think the app is brilliant for what they've added to it. I think the missions is a bit weird because I was just messaging Tom, and it turns out that that you can't play the missions they provide you are not the chapter approved mission. That's like a tournament mission. Or there's some confusion of what that is.
Okay.
So it's a bit weird. So it's a bit, but no, I am excited playing it. I would like to get some clarity on how one plays a game and how you do it with the different terrain layouts, etc. Because it looks really cool. And I'm excited to get back into playing more 40k again, because 10th edition, the core missions of 10th edition I found less interesting, but I have enjoyed playing it more in the last 12 months, doing more of the narrative stuff with the 500 Worlds campaign.
Oh yeah,
that we've been doing. That's been really good fun. Just playing, just moving models around a table. So I'm really hopeful that this new version is smoothed out, is simplified in such a way so you can just have a much more fun game based on what you're bringing to the table. So I am excited for it. I mean, there's a few minor niggles, like what's going on with the objectives, like the fact that, as you were saying about the missions not being in the app, but that might be of a confusing thing for what's a tournament mission and what's a chapter approved mission.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
So, but no, I am really excited for it, which is annoying because I want, which is annoying because I want to spend my time focused on AOS. So now I have to split my time more. So good job, Team 40k, I guess, for that. But I am really I am mostly looking forward to diving back into doing some more orcs, because I think those models look really cool.
Oh yeah, they're really cool models for sure.
So I am looking forward to doing that. I'm looking forward to getting my orcs back up and building a force of that. Might take me a little while though, so probably I want to do some practice games with my knights first.
And that makes sense, yeah, because we've obviously got the grand narrative in August, I want to say. So I'm glad my custody survived the Legends cull, because they're all still viable. They haven't taken any of the Forge World units off to Legend, which would be my worry, because then I'd have had to scrape together probably some other unit to make up a full army for that event. Yeah, it's interesting that it feels like my army hasn't really changed how it plays, because obviously the rules haven't really changed a huge amount. I don't really I can't really use any of the new detachments because I just don't have those units in any particular numbers to make it more viable. So for me, specifically, at least with the Thunder Warriors / Custodians, it hasn't really changed all that much. But what will be interesting is the area terrain, the terrain layout, playing on those. It feels like there's a lot more setup and hiding, and things like the hidden mechanic will be really interesting to sort of understand how that works once you start playing the game a bit more. As you say, I think the app's done a really good job for the most part. It looks really good. Be keen to use that for like sharing roster when we play games, and also doing all the score in that app in one place will be very interesting and probably useful rather than having to flick between apps. I think that would be cool. Yeah, I think overall I'm really positive about it and kind of keen to get some games in and try things out. And yeah, so overall I think they've done a pretty good job, but there's been a few little niggles like area terrain being sold out. They maybe haven't done a great job when it comes to revealing some of the rules or the order in which they showed off rules, because they were just drip feeding stuff, so you were never getting the full context behind it. I assume in the next week or two there'll probably be like a bit more of an FAQ clarifying some weird niche rules. I've already seen people on like TikTok and stuff going, I've broken the pile-in phase and I've found out how to cheat the system, because they've got some exploits that they can do. So I imagine there'd be FAQs and updates to fix.
Yeah, in preparation for this, Phil, I was looking on Goonhammer, and they had an article saying they have found a rule which breaks 11th edition. However, I have to subscribe to their Patreon to know what that is. So I won't know. So I won't know how to break 11th edition, because I'm not going to subscribe to their Patreon after they so cruelly did a disservice to my list when I came second in an event.
Yes, I remember they dissed it. Yeah, no, what's this doing second? Unbelievable. No, I do.
How did this get into the final? Yeah, well, yeah. I have not forgotten Goonhammer.
Well, yeah, I think the one sort of rules exploit I sort of discovered when I was going through the rules was if you have a unit like directly behind another unit, and for some reason if you don't roll high enough, well, because you can't get into combat with, basically there's a weird thing where you can charge a unit, but you can't pile in, or you can't charge all the way into being base with them, because you would then also be in combat with the unit that's directly behind, and you can't be in combat with them because they were, say, too far out of your roll range or whatever, or you can physically get there. So there's some like weird niche things around combat there, and because combat's all movement based, where you get all the fiddly stuff and things like the overrun and stuff will be interesting to start playing that to see how that all works. So yeah, there's those little things, but overall really positive. I'm really keen to play the game. I'm just annoyed I can't play it right now, because while we have a lot of the rule and now we've actually got the app, we can actually technically play a game with the card. I'm like, well, I'm still missing the area terrain to technically play it in its truest sense. And while you could muddle through with some printouts or something, it feels like it might just be worth holding off until we can get an official set or something.
And if anyone can advise on if the wibbly bits are important or not, that would.
Yeah, Common Games Workshop, answer Richard directly.
What's the deal with the wibbly bits?
Yeah,
are they mandatory? Or how's this work?
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. Yeah, well, on that note, wibbly bits, we will go into a transitional noise, and we will end mostly the show then. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Richard. I appreciate it. Any final words?
Any final words? Yeah, Games, can you please just look at the Suasis Knight Asheron and give it a gun that works? Come on, it's dumb. I have to proxy it as a castigator because that's the only good one of those knights. No, as a minor thing, no. Otherwise, no. I am really excited for edition. I was dubious if I would be, because I wasn't too excited about 10th. But this edition, I am really excited for it. I feel there's like a going back to basics side of things, and just a major shout out to the app, to the people making the app. Mm-hmm. The way that you can share your list with someone is magical. Like that's a huge deal. Absolutely brilliant. The fact that when you're playing any event, especially, is like you can just instantly share your list with your opponent, and I'm not having to constantly ask them, have you got any gotcha stratagems? Because I know I can look myself. It's because I don't know about other people. Whenever I play opponent, I'll quickly make their list in my own app, so I've got it to hand. And that's
I guess there's so many if there's gotchas, you still might not notice them
Exactly,
because you
yeah.
might not
But-
see the combos or synergies. But I like that at least you can go,
But now I don't need to. I
rather
don't
than
even-
asking them, "Oh, what's your toughness?" You can be like, "Oh, let me just quickly check. Okay, cool. Now I know what I'm."
It should speed up so much of a game because you don't in theory you don't have to do the theatre of I'm going to explain every single part of my army, which will likely go over your head a little bit, and then you do the same back to me. We can just get on with the game
Yeah,
because we can
that just wastes so much time.
and you can tell you can let you know, oh, this is this unit, it's attached to this unit. It's really nice the improvements they've made to the app. The only thing that's obviously missing is there's clarity on the mission objectives, how they work, are they in there, and legends
Right.
and only minor thing I would say is only because I'm going to the narrative event in Wales, and apparently at the time in the current rules pack, which is probably going to be changed shortly, it said you could take Crucible champions with you, but the app does not support Crucible champions. So I'm just wondering
What's
if that's
that?
the thing.
Crucible of Champions?
That's where you can make your own custom characters, which you can't do in the app. Which you can't currently do in the app. It is. I do think it's possibly a niche thing, so maybe it's something that they won't ever add into the main app.
Yeah, I think so, because I think but it
is a thing
they did like a tournament events pack which specifically talks about rules for like the main way of playing the Dominatus deck, the doubles, because that's a popular format, and I think it's interesting because that narrative event sits outside maybe of a lot of the standard sorts of games because they do it once or twice a year, and it's mostly Games Workshop specific. So maybe they just won't do the scoring. Well, they might not even do those missions. They might do just custom missions, in which case you don't need the app because you don't need the app for score. It might not be on BCP, so it might be it's just they're doing their own.
No, scoring built into the app now. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's
absolutely brilliant for that. Now, the only reason I mentioned the Crucible thing is because you want to have every possible piece of functionality in that app. So having legends in there is important. So there's no reason for anyone to go elsewhere. Having the missions that you can browse, as you were talking about, Phil, having them in the app so you don't have to go to a separate website is really important for that app. And I do know that New Recruit does have the Crucible stuff in there. So that's just it does have the new Recruit does have the Crucible stuff in there. Because I was messing around with trying to put together potential list for the narrative, and that's easy to do because you can because the Crucible rules are in New Recruit, but they're not in the 40k app. So it might be a niche thing because I don't know how long the Crucible rules are going to be relevant in 40k.
Well, all edition they said.
If it's going to be all edition, add it in there.
Edition. Yeah,
let's get in there. Let's get that roadmap.
I think it's like the barriers to entry, right? So the reason why I've always said I want Legends in there is because it just makes me unable to play Legends in 40k unless I'm using another app or I'm being super old school and printing things out. And it's a bit like, that's really inconvenient. It's like the convenience of having Legends in the official Warhammer app mean you Games Workshop want me to buy a Warhammer Plus subscription, so therefore it wants me using their app. So that app should have more functionality than any other app, which now includes scoring, list building, list sharing. That's all good. Legends now, or eventually Legends in theory, fantastic. All singing, all dancing, and as you say, things Crucibles of Champions would just be a nice cherry on top. So it would be really
could not agree more.
Okay, brilliant. Well, on that note, we go on to the end of the show. Transitional noise. We're doing a 5-star review. We didn't have time to do one last episode, but we've got one this time, and it's come all the way from Apple Podcasts of the United States. Isn't that going to be interesting? From a guy called Some Guy 878. He says, Apple Podcasts from the Americas. Redoing my 5-star review because Phil just did a solo 3-hour show on the Armageddon book. An amazing feat. I love this show. Even though he thinks it's rambling, I have no one to talk 40k with. My friends and family think it's a weird hobby, and they're right. But even though it's a one-sided conversation, it's nice to have like-minded people talk about the hobby that we love. Keep up the amazing work. So thank you very much, Some Guy 878. I appreciate that you enjoy even the rambling solo shows that happen from time to time. Very sad to hear that you don't have any friends to talk 40k with. You should rope your friends and family into 40k. Make them play games with you. Make them stand there and roll dice, even if you're doing everything else. I think that's probably for the best. And, worst case scenario, just keep listening to this show and these episodes. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm glad you're enjoying the Danless shows as much as I'm sure you enjoyed also the Dan shows as well. So thank you very much. If you're anyone else like some guy 878 and would like to support the show, you can leave a 5-star review on all good 5-star review places such as Apple Podcasts, YouTube in the comments, Audible. I don't think you can do Spotify, but you can leave 5 stars there, I believe. But I'll try and pick them up where best I can. It's a great way to support the show. You can also send this episode to a friend just to make them listen to it. Spread the word, I think, is the greatest thing that people could do, probably to support the show more than anything else. So anything like that would be greatly appreciated. Like, comment, all the usual social media stuff. You can also buy some merch from Red Level, which are linked in the description of each episode. And you can also be an extra special supporter by backing me over on Patreon. And all of that money goes towards supporting the show, buying the books that we'll talk about at some point in the future. So that's all greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Do support the show where possible. And if you can't do anything other than just watch along or listen along, I appreciate that just as much as well. So thank you very much. With that all said and done, we'll go to a brief outro. So let's do a quick transitional noise. So it's the end of the show, and I just wanted to wrap it up this time with a little bit of an outro, because last episode I sort of ran out of time to do any of this, so I thought it would be good just to catch you guys up on what's been going on in the world of hobbying and potentially talk about some ideas for future episodes. And if you do have any ideas for future episodes, please do just let me know, drop me a comment or just message me directly. I'd love to hear about what you guys would also like to see as topics for future episodes. Lately, I've been doing some hobbying, but not a huge amount. You have to excuse me, it is absolutely boiling in this shed today. The brief rain interlude that we had for the last week or so has disappeared and it's become scorching hot. It's like 27 plus degrees in this shed, back to the conditions of needing aircon. So I've done some hobbying on a sort of a personal project. So I finished the Inquisitor for the 500 Worlds, finished the 500 Worlds campaign. That was very good. Hopefully I'll talk about that in a bit more detail, maybe in the next episode. But then in terms of actual hobbying of miniatures, I've been doing some work for my Wastelands game, which was a project I started many years ago. Basically, it's a skirmish Mad Max-esque style post-apocalyptic game, and I've been writing the rules for many years, but the last few months I've been trying quite hard to sort of not necessarily finalize them, but just write them all out and get them to a point where I can playtest them. But ideally, rather than just using tokens, I wanted to playtest them with some miniatures. So I've been making some miniatures for that game system, for want of a better word. So here's one of them that I've done. If you can see, so this is like a runner character. Basically, you can note lots of pistols, sort of more realistically proportioned than normal Games Workshop stuff. This guy's carrying a jerry can and lots of backpacks, survival gear, that sort of thing. That's sort of like the general theme, based on the Traitor Guard miniatures from Blackstone Fortress, in terms of this one in particular, and he's going to be a raider type model. So that was like a Traitor Guard mini converted up and sort of reduced the spikes in size for the most part, but I liked the sort of motorbike aesthetic that they had. So that's what I've been doing for those guys. I've done about 4 of them so far. I've not actually posted any pictures off anywhere, and I'm currently working on a biker guy as well, so I'm trying to hopefully get that done sometime soon, basically. So that's it in terms of actual doing some model making. Haven't played any games. Was hoping to have a game with Tim tomorrow, but he's busy, sadly. That was going to be Age of Sigmar based. Me and him have been on a little hype train of weirdly not 40k. So for a few weeks ago, we were talking about Ogre tribes for Age of Sigmar, doing like that as a potential doubles list, assuming Ogre tribes get a new faction done sometime in the future. I like the idea of doing pirate-themed Ogre tribes. But then this week we've been talking ourselves into doing more Heresy, because the Mark V tactical marines are very cool. There's a new combat patrol sort of starter box. I think starter set maybe is what it's going to be called, of Mark V Marines with a Contemptor Dreadnought, and I feel like I think it's like a Sikaran tank or something, and that looks pretty solid as a force. And we were thinking about just picking that up each and doing our own like mini games of Heresy with each other. So we might do that. I think we're quite excited about it. I'm keen to do Sons of Horus. He's quite keen to do Night Lords. I'm sort of keen to also do Night Lords because of the Space Marine that was on the base of my Inquisitor. I painted up in a Night Lord scheme, and I thought a very sort of almost standard non-chaosified version of Night Lords. Get it right. Although ironically, after listening to an audiobook this week, I discovered that Kurz is actually called the Night Haunter. So it's interesting. Again, Games Workshop recycling words, potentially. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm getting those two names mixed up. But yeah, the Night Lords, less chaosified, look quite cool, I think. So I'd almost be tempted to have an excuse to do a unit of them. Maybe as Heresy, maybe for 40k, some kind of lost 40k chapter would also be fun. But potentially, yeah, a little unit of Heresy, which is odd because I think doing Heresy and new Space Marines for 11th edition alongside each other would be quite difficult. So maybe the Heresy stuff will be a later project. For 11th Ed, I really want to just get some games done, but as we talked about in the main episode, like the main part of it, it's actually going to be quite difficult without those area terrains. Although it sounds like what's in chapter approved, having done a little bit of research, or Richard's done a little bit of research since we recorded, it's a bit different from what they give you in the app. So in the app, you get the terrain layouts with the prescribed, this is where stuff goes. And it's very tournament specific layouts. You don't get that in chapter approved by the sounds of it. It's a bit more, just put some terrain down around some objective markers and that counts. So maybe the chapter approved deck weirdly is different from the app and is more casual based. So you can just play by putting stuff down, which I think is good and healthy for the game. But I worry that people might just be a little bit too obsessed about playing the correct way of playing, which will mean using the area terrain mats and things like that. But it still would be nice to have, just in general, just to try out that game format, even if after a few games I'm like, I just want to do the casual version and just put down my nice terrain. So that's stuff to do at some point. So that'd be good to do. There's loads of 40k stuff I could do. I could do more Thunder Warriors. I'd definitely like to do more Space Marines, I think. I've always had ideas about going back to my Krieg army and doing some more models for that, but I just don't think I will. I feel like that's a much more like historical army now that I will use for playing older editions of the game rather than newer editions. Although I do have the idea of doing a Tempestus Scions army or mini army using the Grenadier models. So I might do that at some point, and that would still be future compatible with the current editions of the game, whereas a lot of the older models just don't really work. Although with Legends coming back, then maybe it's a bit more doable depending on how viable their rules are and their points and things like that. So that's something to also look at. So I think there's quite a bit of 40k stuff to do. Still want to build the boarding actions terrain, still want to just build regular terrain. I've spent quite a long time looking at mats and gaming mats for my very sparse gaming table behind me if you're watching on YouTube. So there's a couple of cool ones from gamesmat.eu or GameMats GameMat.eu. Yeah, I don't think the S is in there. GameMat.eu. There's a couple called double-sided ones, but the one I like the look of the most is on pre-order for at least another month. So I feel like I might hold off on that one and then get another one somewhere else in the meantime. And then the other company that I really like the look of is P-Works War Games. They have some really nice mats as well and are sort of similarly priced, I think. But it feels like they're really like quite detailed in terms of their mats, and they've got a really cool like 3D effect when you look at them, at least in their online videos. So potentially I might try and get one of those. They've got a few cool like Wasteland ones. I'm sort of torn. So obviously I've got a 6x4 gaming table, mostly for my 6x4 tiles. Now, do I get a 6x4 gaming mat? I'm sort of thinking not, and I'll get a 60x44, like the standard AOS 40K gaming size. And that's sort of why I wanted the double-sided one, because I could have one that's more green, that's more AOS-ified, and then on the other side, it's more sort of barren, either desert or urban, sort of city rubble sort of size. So I could have one side for 40K, one for AOS. And I think the best combination on GameMat.eu, like they didn't do like in terms of the best two sides, but there was a good compromise between one I like the look of. Whereas P-Works have some really good ones, but they're only single-sided. So maybe I'll pick up one of those to tide me over, and maybe that one is a 6x4 if I want to do something like Heresy and not use my gaming tiles, for example. And then I could use that for games of 40K and just mark out the edges, and then I can get double-sided mat as well. Maybe. I don't know if that's mad. If anyone's got some comments about, good mat recommendations, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear what people say. Let me know down in the comments your recommendations. Yeah, because it doesn't seem like a huge amount of people talk about them all that much. Like there's been the odd review video here and there. A lot of them are quite old. Yeah, sort of like a more modern contemporary answer. And I feel like everyone's moved over to games mats as a thing now. And as much as I sort of aren't a huge fan of the concept, just the speed of having them is quite useful. And I've got my gaming tiles when they're ready. But I sort of feel like I also need some standard stuff for regular 40K and regular AOS. So that's something I'm also been looking at this week. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it in terms of stuff to talk about for now. Looking forward to getting my hands on the actual Armageddon box. Hopefully we'll talk about the joy and excitement of actually looking through some of that in a future episode. And again, if you enjoy your Armageddon box and you've got it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think, or just reach out to me directly. Either works very fine. Yeah, enjoy hobbying, which you might be doing as you're listening. Enjoy your hobby this week. Is a great time for 40K. It's also a big time for AOS with the General's Handbook coming in like a couple of weeks. Like pre-order, I think is maybe today at the time of listening. It's pretty soon, so that'll be also another interesting thing to talk about. If you want to listen to Age of Sigmar content, I can produce it. But if not, I will maybe do more 40K stuff. Yeah, that's my end of little ramble. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week, weekend, evening, whatever you might be doing. Enjoy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Goodbye.